I'm going to call this meeting to order. Please be patient with me this evening. I still have a lingering cough, and I may, as I've mentioned to my vice president, that I may throw the gavel at him and race out of the room to deal with my coughing fit. I'm going to try to suck on as many cough drops as possible to get through this. But anyway, just please be patient with me. I do not have any announcements this evening. And let's just open this up for public comment. Please, I would like to mention, if anybody is interested in public comment, please make sure that you sign in over there where we have the nice new sign that says please sign in. And make sure that you stand at the podium and announce who you are, your address, and limit your comments to 5 minutes. So, assuming all those rules, any public comment? Chad? Over here. Yeah, sorry. Sorry. Well, we changed it around so that there's better visibility on television.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chad Allen Carr. I'm currently reside at 49 York Street, which also holds the offices for Gettysburg Community Theater and Gettysburg Pride, two not-for-profit 501c3 organizations inside the Borough of Gettysburg. Excuse me. As you know, we have been talking with you about considering creating an ordinance for non-discrimination for LGBTQ. We do not currently have such an ordinance, to my knowledge, that covers anything in regards, because we rely so much on state and our national laws to help all persons, regardless of race, color, religious creed, ancestry, age, sex, national origin, disability, use of an assistant animal, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, enjoy the full benefits of citizenship and afforded equal rights, equal employment opportunities for employment, housing, commercial property, and the use of public accommodations in the Gettysburg Borough. We are asking the council to please consider creating an ordinance, not just a resolution. Resolution, frankly, is insulting to me as a gay man. An ordinance makes a law. A resolution is not worth the paper it's written on. We have heard that the council is considering one of those, and that perhaps a human relations commission would be needed to start that. That is what most boroughs of our size and smaller already have. They have an ordinance and they have a human relations commission that would meet for an hour once every other month, 3-year terms, et cetera, et cetera. The borough can help create that, of course. The borough can help create that application process. The borough can seek those volunteer residents of the borough that would be willing to serve on that. I now have over 20 names of residents of the borough that would be willing to, if called upon, fill out an application that the borough council would create and make a human relations commission. I would urge that this council please create this non-discrimination ordinance so that all that are residents of the borough feel equally treated. I know that's open for workshop today. If there is any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Jason Lowndown Goodman from the Pennsylvania Youth Congress is on his way and will be able to answer them as well. I know he's been working with you, sending you documents and answering questions for you. And I just want to, again, thank you for the opportunity to open the dialogue. This is now I believe the second workshop that we have discussed this. It was on an official committee, official council agenda. I appreciate that time. And I thank you for all of the work that you have done, I'm sure, in researching and coming up with the best possible solution. Again, I just firmly believe that an ordinance is needed, not just a resolution. And I thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Kathy?
This is very odd. I'm not used to the podium. My name's Kathy Gilbert, and I'm here as the president of GARMA, Gettysburg Area Retail Merchants Association. I received a phone call maybe about a month ago from Jake, and said that the Arts Council was no longer interested in operating the New Year's Eve celebration, and asked if that was something that GARMA would be interested in doing. And I said, well, I need some details, and so he gave me a little bit of information, and then I contacted Judy Butterfield because she's been in the Arts Council for many years. So I was hoping to get some information from her. Her and I did meet, and we talked, and I got some of the prior budget information from her. However, apparently the reason the Arts Council is no longer interested in operating is because of the $5,000 fee that is being levied for the event. So I am here to say that GARMA is interested in possibly operating the New Year's Eve event if there is a way that we can possibly get a reduced fee. I don't know what the availability of all of that is. And I would also like to know when we need to have an answer by. Because if, depending on what the council comes back with to us, we would probably have to do fundraisers to raise some money for the event fee, because it's not something that's currently part of our budget. And at $5,000, that's a little bit hefty for a nonprofit to raise that kind of money. So I'm still looking for more answers from everybody, and if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Any
Great.
questions?
And does anybody have any questions for Kathy?
Kathy, yeah, did you receive, in that amount, did you receive what that $5,000 goes towards? Did they share that with you?
I
either
did
from
not.
the
I have
borough
not
or
received
from-
that information yet. I haven't pursued it that far.
Okay.
This is, like I said, I met with Judy, and she got the information from Chris Gladfelder.
Okay.
And so I know what the prior fees were, and that the people who are currently sponsoring it, funding it, apparently are willing to continue to do so. And so it looks as something that would fit very nicely into what we do, since we have the tree lighting, and we already kind of know what we're doing with that. So it is in the scope of our ability to do it if we can figure out how to raise some funds to take care of the fee.
Thank you.
Sure, yeah, thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Mhm.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Lazarus. I am an admissions counselor at the Gettysburg campus of Harrisburg Area Community College. In addition to working as an admissions counselor at the HAC Gettysburg campus, I also serve as their faculty advisor for their Student Alliance for Equality, which is an LGBTQ and ally group at the HAC Gettysburg campus. At our campus, the SAFE Club, as it's known, is one of the largest and most active clubs on campus. So as an educator, I would love to see the borough put forth some support for an ordinance for non-discrimination policies for the borough. So I think that's really important to our students who are living, working, and studying in the borough. So I would encourage you to take this seriously and help our students in our community.
Briefly, the list that Chad and Carr mentioned, are any of the students on that list?
They might be. I don't know who's all on the list, but I would imagine.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the issues is the volunteerism. So, that would be, if the students are engaged, then that would be good. So.
I know some of them are here today, and more are expected to attend. But yeah, I know this is something that we're very supportive of and would like to see.
Right. All right. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Jenny Dillon. I'm the owner of Artworks at 30 York Street in town, and I want to speak about the ordinance also. in supporting Chad. I am an ally. I'm a very, very fervent ally. And I can tell you the struggles that people have gone through. For last year's Pride, I did an event in my store that was called If I Could Turn Back Time. And I featured 10 different LGBTQ figures from history and some of the things that they have had to go through. One could not marry his partner, so he adopted his partner so he would be able to inherit what he had. Harvey Milk, I think that's probably the biggest name people know of, that because he didn't agree with Dan White, he was shot for that. There are others, Alan Turing, who at the time in England, being gay was a crime. He was arrested. He could go to jail or he could do chemical castration. If you were to ever read what chemical castration does to somebody, it is absolutely horrible. And he ended up killing himself. So we don't need that here. We need to be inclusive, accepting, have an ordinance that protects. And if anyone has any questions for me about different people in history, I still have my 10 poster boards. This coming Pride year, I'm adding probably about 4 more of other figures in history and what they've done for the LGBTQ community, not even realizing that they were doing it. That's all.
Thank you, Jenny. Anyone else? Yep. Barry.
I'd like to thank you. My name is Barry Decker. I was a part of the chairman of the Gettysburg Joint Veterans Memorial Day Commission. I presented in December at your meeting. I know one of our members as well was at your January meeting and understood that you would be, talking about the Memorial Day parade, how you would be able to potentially support us. We presented a $1,500 fee that we would pay. We paid for 2019, and we had wanted a response by the 23rd because, as you guys know, when you go and try to, when you're planning things, you're trying to get things going as far as a parade, you really need the time. You can't be short on time, especially when we have to get a permit into you, and then once you set those things, then you got to get in the PennDOT because of our road closures. It really becomes a challenge. So the only one question, Mr. Schindel, is it on the agenda for this evening? I did not see, unless it's special purpose.
Yeah, it's special
Is that
events.
what it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you, I appreciate that. Like I said, I wasn't aware when I looked at the agenda. And there again, I really don't have to say much. You guys have heard everything that we've said. And I know you do support Memorial Day. I really do understand that, but we are in a situation and time that we really need to support. And like I said, we're not coming to you, we didn't come to you in regards to saying we want you to pay for everything. No, we said, $1,500 I think is very reasonable. But we do need your partnership, we need your agreement. I know you can't vote on it tonight, that's what I understand that. But I know I would like to walk away, and several of us would like to walk away and to understand and know that you are in a partnership with us, and that we can move forward, and then this community could have a parade this year. So I will be around. I apologize. I don't know how you work things here. If you have questions, I think we're very willing to answer questions, that kind of stuff. So like I said, I appreciate the time. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Mike?
Mike Shestock, 264 Baltimore Street. And I made a New Year's resolution that I wasn't going to bother you guys on a couple of things. But I got an itch. And it's over the special events ordinance. And there's 2 problems between you and the community. And that's communication and dollars. You knew on the Memorial Day parade that train was coming and answers were going to be needed. And what happened was, the first meeting you had after the organization it wasn't on the agenda. That was Thursday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I want to know who makes up the agenda and then why it wasn't on there. I'm not going to waste my tax dollars or your time, doing a right to know request. But you've got to get it right. In December, I said, get a committee. You used to have committees. And solve this problem. It's not that hard. I told you before, on the budget, the constipated mathematician worked it out with a pencil. What's wrong with you guys? On the dollars, the answer is Norris Flowers. Why is his staff bigger than yours, Mr. Gable? He doesn't talk. But the answer is the pillow tax. But Dan Moll's not interested. It's the formula, he says. It's got to be communication. And the dollars have to come from somewhere. Jake, running a coffee shop. How many cups of coffee do you have to sell to give somebody $25 or take out an ad? So I apologize for being angry. I'll try not to talk to you guys too much because basically you're doing a good job. But when I talk, I expect you to hear what I'm saying and listen what I'm saying. And that doesn't happen. Another thing is, and this is under the police report, or the chief is here, how many people have taken a ride? He's short-staffed. He needs things. Take a ride with him. Or go visit my favorite parking lot over here. I got into a gray area, so I apologize for that. But please do something.
Mike, we do have Patty's committee discussing issues with the pillow tax. Just to reference the one thing that you mentioned about Destination Gettysburg.
I think I have 30 seconds left. One of my resolutions was patience, so Patty, I'll wait.
All right, anybody else for public comment?
Good evening. My name is Sean Lazarus. I'm a licensed social worker that works in the Borough. I'm located at Justice Works Youth Care on Baltimore Street. I'm in support of the ordination that Chad mentioned earlier. I work with a lot of vulnerable populations in the community. This is an issue that has come up. We work with families as a unit who are often facing homelessness or other certain crisis situations. As a licensed social worker, I believe in social advocacy. I'm a firm believer keeping families together, advocating for social justice, and I feel like this ordination is a right time to put this in place and do what's right for the people of the borough. You have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else for public comment? All right, Mr. Reed? Leon, yeah?
Hi, my name is Leon Reed. I'm here speaking on behalf of the 2020 Census Complete Count Committee. I left a packet here today, which you have. I promise I won't walk through that packet page by page. The census comes around every 10 years. The U.S. Constitution says every person should be enumerated. The official census day this year is April 1st, although I understand forms will be available. You'll be able to do your form sooner than that. Plan A this time around is they hope about 80% of the people fill out their form online. There will be numerous follow-ups, paper, other ways of filling out your form. Complete count is really important. The census results are used to determine representation in Congress, representation in Harrisburg. Also, something like $670 billion of federal funding is apportioned, at least in part, on the basis of population. I've seen an estimate that every person not counted costs $2,000 a year. So basically, to be blunt, getting a complete count is about political power and about money. Somebody is going to get that money. It's just a question of, is everybody in Adams County counted? Are we getting our fair share? I want to call your attention in the packet on the back, no, I think on the bottom of the first page, really neat mapping program the census has called Rome. Shows the hard-to-count areas in Adams County. Notably, one of those is the borough itself. I understand last time around, a lot of the problem was just addresses, getting them correlated with residences. They think they solved that problem this time, but it is a problem here. Adams County typically has about 20–25% undercount. There are a lot of reasons people don't participate. Most of them are things that can be solved with information and facts and figures. They don't think they have to. They don't think it's important. They think it's too hard. The one we're really concerned about, the one we think is really going to be a barrier, unsurprisingly, is people don't trust the government. That is a constant. I remember my first census as an adult in 1970. There were people beating the drums about it then. I suspect that suspicion level probably is as high as it's ever been. So we're working very hard to reach out to populations to identify the hard to count populations, reach out to them, also make it very easy to be counted. Every library in the county, for example, you'll be able to go in, talk to a librarian, they'll take you over to the computer and do it right then and there. Places like SCAP, etc. The packet includes both English and Spanish fact sheets on security. The census has information online on just about everything you'd want to know. We picked that one out since we do think that's the big issue. It also has the whole census form. It's 9 questions. Not terribly intrusive, most of them are, name, age, things like that. Finally, what you can do to help, publicize the census in your offices, on your web pages, any newsletters you send out, talk it up in public appearances. Let us know constituencies either that can assist or that need a contact from us. And with that, thank you very much for your attention.
I had a question.
Yeah,
for Leon.
yeah.
You just mentioned the figure on what it costs per person if they don't, what was that number again? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
I've seen the estimate, $2,000 a year per person undercounted.
Okay.
Hypothetically, if it's 20%, that means we've lost 20,000 people or so last time.
Well,
Thank you.
And I think the important thing to keep in mind about that is, as a community that looks for a lot of grant funding, I would assume that the census number has to do with grant funding and how important we are. So I would say that this is very
Yes.
important.
Program
for-
funding like WIC, I think not Title I, but most education funding is per capita.
Mhm.
Title I is based on people in poverty.
Mhm.
Road funding, it affects a lot of.
Right.
And I assume state funding, I've not studied state funding, but I would
Yeah,
assume.
yeah, CDBG
similarly.
is based on.
things are all based on
Yeah.
census data.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thank
Wh-
you.
Well, as someone on council that has done some door-to-door, I would, I'm not throwing anybody else from council out there, but I would be interested in helping to get
Yes,
some of
there are.
those people.
There are jobs available, $16.50 an hour, not bad for a part-time job.
That's more than what we get paid on council.
No resume required, no experience required. This is a job, you have to be 18, a high school a rising senior, college students on break, single mothers, people working part-time. It's an ideal job, and they are behind on hiring in Adams County. They need a lot of people.
So if we did want to help out, where would?
It's easy. It's online application. If you Google census jobs, it'll pop right up. I don't remember the URL.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed.
It's
All
2020census.gov/jobs.
All right. Now on to new business. Charles, you want to tell us about that?
2020 is
Yes,
a
management.
year where both the county and the borough need to update their hazard and emergency operations plan. In your council packet tonight is the draft plan for the emergency operations and the notification and resource manual that accompanies that. Dave Sanders has, council's already reappointed Dave Sanders as the borough's emergency management coordinator. So this is more of an informational item that council should look at. If there are no questions, I would ask consensus to move both the promulgation and the resolution forward for further action at your next business meeting.
In the resource section, that needs updated. There are a lot, I shouldn't say a lot, but there are issues in there that are wrong.
Okay, could you send me the corrections and I'll make sure Dave gets those?
Sure.
All right, does anybody else have any other concerns about the EOP?
We'll have a final draft for you at the business meeting for that. Are they voluminous changes?
I just skimmed through it and they just started popping out, so I imagine there's more than I saw, but I'll work at it.
Okay. Good to know.
All right. Does anybody else have any other real concerns before we move on? All right. I think we're okay with that.
Okay. The next is also more of an informational item. In the 6 years I've been here, we have not done a purge on documents that are not required to be kept in perpetuity. And when was the last time we did a records retention?
We did it in 2011.
2011, so it's been better part of a decade. So in your packet tonight was the law that governs records retention for your consideration, and this is a project that staff is working on currently as we move along in our other duties on a daily basis. And at some point, once we identify the records that can be destroyed, we will need to have those documented and passed by resolution with council. Any questions regarding that?
Anyone? All right.
Okay. All right, on to the main show, special events. New PBS, policy briefing summary, 2020-1. This is a fairly voluminous topic tonight because this really does touch on more than just parades. So with that, let me find it real quick. It was mentioned with the parades and also earlier tonight in public comment with regarding other events, most notably the New Year's Eve fireworks or celebration for New Year's Eve. I think the goal that council should consider is outlined in this first sentence, is to find solutions to the extent possible to minimize the costs associated with the sponsoring of special events in Gettysburg Borough. For the public's information and for those that might not be familiar with past actions of council, there's an extensive narrative here written about the impact on the borough's budget. I won't belabor the point here for purposes of moving this along. I'll just highlight some of the more pertinent points as to how fees were developed by council. About 10 years ago, maybe more, a little more than 10 years ago, the borough was in a very precarious financial situation on the verge of Act 47. And for those that don't know what Act 47 is, layman's terms, it's essentially bankruptcy for municipalities. DCED at the state level worked with the borough at that time to enter the borough into what's called the Early Intervention Program. That name has changed since then, but it's done under the Governor's Office for Community Services. A grant was given to the borough in about 2011 to commission a study on best practices for the borough to continue the road to solvency. One of the recommendations that came out of the report presented to the borough in 2012 was a total review of fees assessed for services rendered. And so this is why we have different things like the special event fees, like why we have various parking fees, why we have other HOP fees for highway occupancy when you're digging into the roads. Those types of things were all considered. One of those options here was fees for services rendered. And the Borough Council since then has enacted multiple fee resolutions on an annual basis as part of the adoption of their annual budget. And that policy has been very successful in helping the borough get back to a state of normalcy. The borough is not in the precarious situation that it was 10 years ago. Now, are there still financial issues for the borough to deal with? Absolutely. But the door to Act 47 is further away than it was 10 years ago. So I just wanted to give that backdrop to council and the public about why the fees and the fees resolutions have become a borough policy. And I'll just read this last point here. A rejection of this policy to provide relief to organizations wishing to sponsor special events in the borough could significantly impact the borough's budget in a negative manner. Fees for services provided are an integral part of achieving a balanced budget, and we talk about that every year as we discuss the fee resolution. The background information just discusses some more of the nitty-gritty that we got into this year. We pulled some sample special event permits that were issued by the borough last year. Just for everyone's information, the borough issued 52 special event permits this past year. Now, they range from something small as Gettysburg Rising, having an event, just a gathering on the square, to salsa on the square, to the Halloween parades, Memorial Day parades, and then a 3-day festival, college first year walk. All of those are considered special events. So special events has a very broad definition for our purposes here in the borough. You can see here on the screen the assessed fees for those various events, and each event is very different, and that's why you will see the very varying different costs associated with them. Salsa on the Square, for example, is the lowest one with $255. They didn't require a lot of road closures and police presence for that event. You can see the issues with the Memorial Day Parade there at the top with their bill and the Halloween Parade. Why the discrepancy between a Memorial Day Parade and a Halloween Parade? Well, there were several factors that it went into that. One being the Halloween Parade had to utilize their rain date, which interrupted the planning from the police perspective and increased some overtime costs associated with that. And Chief Glennie could certainly answer any of those specific questions should you have them. So you can see, depending on the needs of the event and the services required by the borough to support those events, directly affect the ultimate cost for those. The board, which agency has the jurisdiction over this? This is clearly a borough council decision, so there really is no other authority, board, or commission to consider this. This is solely vested with the borough council. So staff tried to break this down into a couple different categories of possibilities for discussion to help manage the conversation moving forward. The immediate concern here is the Memorial Day Parade, so that's why they are listed first. I think we should decide how to handle this year's issue, meaning last year's issue, 2019, and then figure out how to move forward in a positive manner that essentially the borough is protected and the community is protected, and the sponsors of those parades are also protected. What most folks do not yet know, and I'll say it here, subsequent to the Memorial Day Committee's presentation, the borough did receive a generous donation from an individual in the community for $1,000 to help support that event and some other events to make sure that they continue and settle up anything that occurred in 2019. If council sees fit for this, at least to settle the issue for this year, the commission did give the borough the $1,500 that they've been speaking about, and if you apply the balance from the $1,000 gift, that would settle the bill for this year. So I guess, Mr. President, you want to talk about these individually, or you want to keep going, or how you want to manage this discussion?
I was just thinking about that. Maybe let's dive into each individually, and then we'll hopefully come up with a coherent plan for everything, or something that.
Well, then I will
is-
stop yapping at that point and let council do your work.
Yeah, okay, so, let's dive into the Memorial Day Parade. So,
Jay, can I just
Yeah.
ask a question?
yeah,
real
sure,
quick?
yeah, go right
It might
ahead.
be for the public too, to clarify. So before 2012, when we started to impose fees, the borough pretty much paid for the special events.
That's my understanding. Is that correct, Sarah?
In other words, the taxpayer.
The taxpayers.
Yeah, right,
We
paid
didn't
for-
charge for the police services or the public works services.
Except,
was there a
except for the
limit?
first year walk. They've always
Okay.
paid,
Yeah.
Gettysburg College has always paid for the first year walk. They voluntarily paid expenses.
Sometimes in the past, Chris, there were donations made, but all in all, the borough picked it up, and at the end of the year, typically, the police budget was over in those categories because you didn't know how many to budget for, you didn't know how much time it was gonna take, you didn't know if they were gonna use the scheduled date, or if it was gonna be a rain date. And a rain date, quite frankly, screws up the works. Because police department can't use part-timers. Maybe they can use part-timers, but a lot of part-timers that we use for parades are available because that date was known, but then they might not be available for the rain date, which means we have to use a regular officer at a higher rate and possibly an overtime rate. So it was all absorbed by the taxpayers. There was a lot of concern and some very vigorous complaints. Why is my tax dollar being spent for events, not just the Memorial Day Parade, but events in general, that are being sponsored and held by people who aren't even in the borough? And that, plus the fact that we were on the verge of bankruptcy, started some conversations, and this is kind of where we ended up. That's a short version, but it's long enough.
So I guess the first issue is, let's talk about last year. So is everybody on board with taking the money that was donated? Are we not announcing who it is, or? No.
No.
You have the thank you letter that I sent to the individual. I don't know that individual, I have not confirmed with
Right.
them if they publicly want to be recognized.
Okay, just checking. But we do have the money to apply to last year's bill. So I think that's the first thing that everybody's okay. Is everybody all right with applying that money towards that? Okay, so that leaves, what, $208, $207?
Which is part of the Halloween resolution.
Oh,
Down
right.
below.
Oh, right, yeah, okay. So for the 2020, then, there aren't any estimates yet, I'm guessing, because there hasn't been any permit filed on how much that's gonna cost. Do we wanna make a guesstimate now, or no?
Well, there
essentially have an estimate.
Yes, I mean,
essentially have an estimate in that.
based on, the
Based on
the number.
where we
that-
landed this year, assuming
Right.
that all the same security protocols remain.
Mhm. So I guess the next move is what do we wanna do with 2020? Because if the commission is only willing to put forth the $1,500, how are we gonna subsume the remainder of the amount due?
That might be part of a broader special event discussion, which is dealt with later down here in some of the staff recommendations.
Right, okay, all right, so we're jumping from Memorial Day into the,
Halloween.
back
I
into
think
the.
roughly, and not to interrupt, but going further down into the document that was prepared, Memorial Day parade would be what's referred to later as the medium parade route.
Right.
And it looks like the anticipated cost for that is $3,250.
Right, okay. So what's everybody's feeling? Do we wanna stay on the Memorial Day specifically right now, or move to the larger issue of special events?
I'd like to talk about holistically.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I think that
Okay.
makes sense too.
I mean, there are
Folks,
few-
and I will remind, just
Yeah.
keep in mind, you can't make any
Right,
formal
right, right.
decisions
No,
at
no,
this meeting.
yeah.
This is for deliberations to
Right.
examine and
I
provide
mean,
some direction as
yeah.
we go to,
Right.
when you can make formal
I do
decisions.
have a question for Charles.
Yeah.
Did this generous donor indicate that it might be an ongoing donation, or were they clear that it was a one-shot thing?
I don't know the answer to that either way. That was not part of the letter that came with.
Do we know to what extent any of these organizations might have pursued any sort of sponsorship outside of the municipal government? Is that something we can encourage?
Yeah, well, I think we always try to encourage that, but, I mean, I don't know, I think part of the decision is how much of that is our role, how much of filling in that gap is our role. Because we, obviously in this particular situation, where we're gonna, potentially allocate, these donated funds to, the remainder of the fee due from the previous year.
Sure.
So is that our role to then continue to find the subsidy to fill in that hole? So I mean, I think that's part of the issue, and I think that's where we're headed with this discussion. Is that feasible, and is that the direction that we want to go? So. Wes, did you
Yeah,
wanna?
I think before we get too much further into how any fees would be paid, there are a handful of principles I'd like the council to consider related to all of these events. One of the large objections, which I think is warranted, that we should consider would require a revision of the fee resolution, and that is that our current fee resolution specifies that essentially we give an estimate, then we calculate actual costs, and we bill for the difference. And I think moving forward, it would be really appropriate that whatever we estimate, whatever we bill for, that we do not bill for additional fees beyond that. That has caused a lot of issues, and that may require a clause that attaches a provision to the use of a rain date or forgoes the option of a rain date, because that is heavily tied to the increased cost that we see. The Halloween parade, for instance, in 2019, and that was very clear. So I think that that's one thing we should definitely consider moving forward. Two, as I stated at our council meeting 2 weeks ago, I have a lot of concerns about treating any events differently. That's a big concern because we are Gettysburg, and we do attract a lot of very meaningful remembrance events that involve many of the Civil War, but a whole number of different remembrance activities related to people's service. So I want to be careful about any scenario where we would have different classes of events and different fees. And the third item that I would ask to consider is when I was reviewing the bills from 2019, I would ask that we consider not charging for the police personnel that would normally be on duty. So we have, in our bill from the 2019 Memorial Day Parade that we received, the cost estimate includes 9 of our full-time patrol officers. We only have 9 full-time patrol officers. And it includes 2 sergeants and the chief. So I think it would be appropriate to consider not billing for 2 of the patrol officers because they would be working anyway, and for 1 of the sergeants because they would be working anyway. Our rates for 2020, the patrol officers are $50 a piece. The sergeants and chief are $61 a piece. So I mean, right off the top, you're approaching $500. And I do think that, we do have to assess and deal with the realities we have with security, and that does take extra officers than we would normally have on station, or have on duty rather. But those that are already working, it seems fairly inappropriate to bill someone for that.
You may want to consider not billing for my time as well, because it doesn't cost the borough any additional money for me to work these special events. I'm not getting overtime for being out there is what I'm saying. So
right.
So I make my salary whether I work 40 hours or 80 hours, doesn't matter. So you could not bill for me and you're not going to lose any money.
So when we talk about a 3-hour event with an estimate of, like it was $35.50 or $32.50. $32.50 was the medium parade route. $35.50 was the long parade route A. We had some flat fees that were proposed in our information, and I broke down long parade route A, and you start to calculate. It's not very difficult. The bulk of it is in the protective issue with the police. There's a minor segment that would go towards parking and what they have to do, and then you have the emplacement of the barricades, which I estimated around $1,200 to $1,300 per occurrence. So that's something down the road we want to make sure we address. But if you take a $32.50 or a $35.50 bill, 2 officers for 3 hours is $300. The chief and a sergeant, that's $360. So you're going to cut about $660 off the bill. That's about a fifth of the bill, right off the top. And I think that's something we should consider.
I think just to correct too, I misspoke as well. I actually think the Memorial Day Parade is the short route, not the medium route. The more I look at the
So I think I was
descriptions
looking at
that's in
long
here.
A, but I'd have to check the
No,
map. Because they run to the cemetery,
Oh, I didn't think of that.
which would
It's-
be long Route A.
Okay. Yeah,
I mean,
just looked at
there are
middle school to
theoretical
Liberty to middle
Do we-
to Baltimore.
Options.
Do we want to back up just for the public's perspective? They're probably like,
Oh,
what are you
yeah.
talking about? Staff is recommending to try to help organizations know how to budget. Staff met and concluded, why don't we offer 3 parade routes at different prices per route? And based on this past year's experience with the new security measures that the police department's put in place, we have a short parade route, which would go from the middle school to Liberty and Middle, Baltimore, Lefevre to back to the middle school. We have a medium parade route, which is the middle school, Baltimore, Lincoln, York Street, Liberty Street to Lefevre Street, and then the long route. The long route has an A or B, depending if you want to go down Lefevre or down Steinway Avenue, or go straight out Baltimore to the cemetery. The estimated cost for the short route, $2,200. The estimated cost, and this is before Council Heiser's suggestion here. Medium parade route was $32.50. Long route A, $35.50. Long route B, $42.50. That is largely derived from the amount of labor that's required to secure those routes. So the long route B is Steinway Avenue. There's a lot of driveway aprons that need to be considered from a security perspective, thus the significantly higher cost. I have maps of those too, if that's helpful.
Well, and that's something that John had brought up from the past, is we used to have kind of groups that would come in and propose whatever they sort of felt would be an appropriate route.
Right.
And standardization would help, and I think it's important to recognize that some of our long-standing parades, like the Memorial Day Parade, were specifically mapped as they exist currently. Although John mentioned earlier to me that it used to be different, and I can remember marching in it differently from Springs Avenue.
Memorial Day Parade has changed significantly my lifetime. It used to form on Springs Avenue, go up to the square, from the square out Baltimore Street the whole way. Then it's formed in Springs Avenue and went up Middle Street because PennDOT was upset with us closing Route 30. So it went up Middle Street to the courthouse, turned, and went out to the cemetery. And now it's down to the shortest that it's ever been, which is basically from the high school up,
Old high school.
yeah, Middle Street and down Baltimore Street. So we really don't have a long parade route anymore like we used to have.
What if, and not to throw a wrench in this, but I mean, we've been talking about the Memorial Day Parade, and the important thing for the group, it seems to me, is the cemetery. I mean, the parade is good because it gets people there and whatever, and if these are the fees, then obviously we're at an impasse. But if the important thing is the cemetery, you know, and then we take the parade from the middle school and then go out to Baltimore Street and just make a left and then head up to the cemetery, it's not a long parade route, but it would potentially be a cheaper parade route. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there as a potential compromise instead of going around and up to the cemetery. Does everybody see what I mean?
I see
by
what you're
that?
saying.
I'm not trying to diminish the event. What I'm saying is, if we are going to go with a structure that clearly prices the group out of the market for the long parade route A, then why don't we alter the parade route, which is what John says that's been happening now for years. You know, and the important thing about the Memorial Day Parade is the cemetery anyway. So, I mean, Mr. Hewitt said that at our one meeting.
Don't the kids come out at the high school now?
What's that?
They come out Lefebvre Street.
Yeah, so they only go from
The small
Lefebvre
children
Street.
do. Yeah. I mean, the question I would have was that actually significantly impact the police presence required for such an event?
If you are and I think I have an idea what Jake's saying. He wants to come out Lefebvre to Baltimore.
Yeah,
make the left on Baltimore, get out Baltimore, continue on Baltimore up to the National Cemetery.
Yeah.
Which is essentially
Like 3 blocks.
the Remembrance Day Parade of 2 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah.
So the Remembrance Day Parade of 2 years ago, out Lefebvre to Baltimore, and Baltimore up to the National Cemetery. Yes, that would significantly impact the fees and the police presence and the use of the concrete barricades. Robbie, correct me if I'm wrong. There's a lot less we'd have to do there. I would guess at least in half from the public works standpoint of setting those up.
And like I said, I don't want to diminish the meaning of the Memorial Day Parade, but I mean, we're talking about money, you know, and we're talking. Yeah,
Can I speak?
Yeah, feel
If
free.
any things you want to consider, I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right from the sense of Memorial Day is more about the ceremony to us than anything. The parade is for the community and helps a celebration. I shouldn't call it. It's not really a celebration. The memorial, or the aspect of remembering those men who, all right, and women who gave their lives. A couple things you have to consider is the amount of crowds. I mean, Memorial Day is a really nice crowd, and you draw a lot of people into town. And so what would happen is you're condensing now, and that may be an issue for crowd. You know what I mean? And that really may be an issue. Second part is it would be a challenge on our part then on some of the logistics of the staging area. Like for instance, the Huey helicopter. If many people have seen that in the Memorial Day Parade, just being able to try to get that into the route where we needed to was very easy just bringing it right into Middle Street once we stepped off of the Fever. So we would have, we would have to look at logistics that way. But there's a couple of things I wanted you to think about. in that aspect.
I had a question for this gentleman who
Sure.
spoke. Thank you for speaking about that, to help us understand. But has your organization done any fundraising to help offset the cost of the parade, like having sponsors?
Absolutely, every year we go out and with donation letters, we got donations, and what's difficult, when you think about organizations, we're all strictly volunteer, and we are bringing the VFW, the American Legion, the Sons of Union Veterans of Civil War, and coming together. We're sitting here and trying to work those things, and so we don't get any pay, we don't get any compensation. I don't, for when I travel down here or wherever I'm at, I don't get any of that. So, we're trying to do the best we can as well.
So the $1,500 that you were proposing, which doesn't sound like it meshes with what our actual costs are, so you have sponsors for the full $1,500?
We do, and interesting is when you take a couple steps back in years, and I want to agree with you, what you had said, you're right, there was a time in which there was no cost, and then there was just a cost for the application fee. I think it was like $15 or $30, and then each time it has increased over time. So part of even the $1,500 around that's been for like the past several years, and so it's just been in this past year and stuff was the jump is significant, and it's like we did not have the opportunity to really budget that because we didn't know that expense. Also, too, that was not even an estimated expense. Okay, so that was why it was very difficult for us in that. And so, so like I said, back to we have gone out.
Because I think the community has shown incredible generosity to different organizations for different events throughout the years. And I would think that, especially for veterans, I think there would be, from a development standpoint, a fundraising standpoint, I think that would be a pretty easy ask, and you would probably get funding for that, so.
If I may speak?
Yeah.
I'm the commander of the American Legion here in town. And everybody's got, always assumes for veterans organizations, it's very easy to raise money. Actually, it's not. Our budgets are stretched. I mean, when days were good, we gave money to the community, left, right, and center. We supported everything we could. We supported the high school with everything we could. And of course, most of that, believe it or not, was gambling money. And we gave it away. Problem is, that's been the bread and butter. We're doing fundraisers outside of that to try to get the money we need so that we can support all the different things that are going on in this community, from Legion Baseball, trying to support Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Anything we're doing, we're looking at trying to raise money. And we are also we also give money to help support the parade. But we don't have a lot of money ourselves. And so we rely on the goodwill of anybody and everybody. I mean, last year, we put up a GoFundMe page to help fund one of our events. I put up one for the parade, and we got some response. But the problem is we're still working with a strict budget because this is just one of the bills we have to pay to take care of, because there's a lot more we're paying for as far as the parade, as far as the ceremonies up at the cemetery. And so we're out there trying to raise money, but the veterans organizations themselves don't have the money to actually cover everything. They're limited to what they can do.
Thanks. And that's a conundrum because, events like parades come to the borough, and when the real costs are not met, then it's the taxpayers who live in the borough that pick up that in terms of taxes. So that's where the rubber meets the road, and it's a tough.
Yeah. Go right ahead.
What's your public interest quantity from 2019? Do you know from your small games of chance? You have a ballpark figure?
No, actually, I don't know.
Okay.
That's a good question.
There's no report from the Legion online from 2019.
I don't think we've ever had to. I've never been approached that. I've never been told we need to give anything. I mean, if you look at it in dollars and cents, I mean, we raise scholarships for all the schools in the borough. We give about $4,000 in scholarships just to high schools. We give another $4,000 a year in scholarships to HAC students. We give scholarships to the middle schools and elementary schools within the borough and the county. We're probably looking at minimum, on average, about $10,000 minimum right there. That's not including what we give to SCAP or any of the other organizations here in town that are looking for money. Basically, anybody that comes to us, we try to help. Veterans in the community, if they're in need of money, if they can't pay a bill, we raise money just to take care of that, so that they're not worrying about it. If someone's homeless, we pay for getting them into some place to live. So it's going to vary from, it's nothing consistent year to year. I mean,
Okay. Yeah, it occurred to me today after this whole discussion and in kind of preparing for this, that information might be available, and I could not find it's reported to the state. And I could not find a 2019 report for the Legion. I found a 2018. I found the 2019 for the VFW. I know Mr. Hewitt's a member. And theirs was very easy to follow. They had $65,000 in proceeds in 2019, and they had $52,000 in change, which is above their mandated public interest component. And it's really itemized.
It should have been, I know, typically it's turned in on our club side.
Okay.
And I know they have turned it in as far as where it's.
I don't know how the state government may or may not have it. I know it's early in the year.
Yeah.
But the proceeds from small games of chance for 2018 were in excess of $250,000. And the public interest component was registered at $112,920. With the majority of those funds, it's just difficult to follow. The VFWs, I can see where they pay these things out. They're literally, I mean, the JRTC, Sergeant Mac, all these things are itemized. Unfortunately for the Legion, it's just hard to tell because almost all of the payees are American Legion Post 202.
Well,
so I assume that you guys are then, after that,
yes, what they're doing
dividing
is
it
on the
out.
club side, they donate 60% to the Post, then the Post takes care of actually.
I'm assuming then you're doing that, but I mean that's
doing that.
$113,000.
Yeah, and pretty much we give it all.
I assume so.
Yeah, simply because that's what we're doing there. A lot of it goes into Legion baseball every year, which is about 8,000 to 10,000. We support the VA hospitals, both in Martinsburg as well as up in Lebanon, and typically we're giving $16,000 to $20,000 a year to each of them. And then we get into the smaller groups. So we've supported everything from Roots for Boots to, and of course all the scholarships we give away, because all that factors in.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just the VFW is really easy to see and understand.
Yeah. Why are there 4 parade routes? If there's only, from what I saw on the screen, 2 of the parades go the same way, with maybe a little bit more of foot to go between, like, let's say the Remembrance Day, it depends on the split, the Remembrance Day parade and the Memorial Day parade. And then the other parades, the 2 others, go that way. Why don't you just have 2 routes? 2 for the ones that go that way, which would be one price, and the other 2 parades go the other way. Then instead of having long parade A, long parade B, short parade A, short parade B, it's just 2 routes. Because since I've been here in 2015, the Remembrance Day parade went from behind the school, and I know it was different, but it went from behind the school to Middle Street, down the hill, because everybody talks about the flags coming down the hill, and it goes that way, and it goes as far as Steinware to a certain extent, and then breaks off somewhere around the Steinware opening of the National Soldier Cemetery, correct? And then the Memorial Day parade, you go up to the other side, which is 97. So if everybody just goes to one, meaning Memorial Day and Remembrance Day, that's 1 route. And the other 2 come out from the school and go up towards the square, because I'm assuming that they culminate up at the square because, you know, the big hoopla and the fireworks and whatever else they have up there goes that way. So why not just 2 parade routes?
Actually, the
Parade
Christmas
route A and parade route B.
The Christmas parade is different as well. It goes from the middle school, up to Middle Street, out Middle Street, down Baltimore, and down Steinware, and ends at the Heritage
But
Center.
what I'm saying is just make it 2 routes.
We
That's
we
it.
would be more than happy to do that, but we're trying to give people some selection, and so that they don't say, well, we want parade route A, but we want to go here. Because then what happens with that is we have to scramble and figure out now, okay, what driveways need blocked, what streets need blocked, where do I have to staff for traffic? So if we give them specifics of 4, then they know ahead of time what it's going to cost, and that we're looking for standardization. And what we don't want is, or we're trying to stay away from, is customization, because then it starts getting more expensive, and then we have to start putting in more things. And
But what I'm saying though wouldn't be,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what I'm saying wouldn't be customization, that would be standard. You
I
go
have-
this way or you don't have the parade.
I have
Just-
zero issue with that suggestion,
Yeah,
ma'am.
the two routes you describe are essentially Long Route A and Long Route B. The
No, I
short,
think it's more medium.
well, in the
I think
mapping
it's
that
the medium one, you don't even have to call it the medium at that point, it's just
Medium
medium
one is
because it
on the
goes
screen
middle.
Yeah. The mapping I have, I think you understand both of them either culminating at the National Cemetery or out Stour Avenue, correct?
But I mean, one ends at
Yeah.
one entrance of the National Cemetery and the other one ends at the other end of the National Cemetery, which
Correct.
would be, so then if they just go to one spot, then that,
So the mapping we were provided, those are long routes A and B. Okay. The medium route basically goes from the middle school up to Middle Street across and loops back on itself. Pardon me, the short route does that. The medium route goes the whole way to York Street in the square and loops back on itself. There are some times when people that are holding parades, there's a desire sometimes to have not just a good assembly point, but also a reassembly point when it's over. So I think that's probably why those options were developed. Although candidly, as the chief said, I mean,
The other,
if two options are enough, two are enough for me.
The other reason that the 4 routes were chosen is it hits every segment of the community that people desire to have an event in.
well,
There is a certain ambiance that people prefer to use the square. So we had to create a route that incorporates a square, which is currently on the screen. We had to incorporate a route that's the least expensive, if that's an issue for the sponsoring organizations. That's the short route. And then longer route incorporates a little parade route that does the historic downtown and then ends at the cemetery.
Right. But even the shortest route kind of prevents what we used to have about 20 years ago. We had problems where the Christmas parade was so short that the nose of the parade ran into the tail of the parade at the fire department. I can remember that, and that was very miserable.
But yeah, you're right, we could come up with 20 parade routes.
well,
or
no,
we
but what
could
I'm
come up
saying
with 2.
is theoretically, if it's the middle school kids and the high school kids and everything that everybody's worried about. I mean, where I'm from, you're on your own and your parents have to pick you up and they tell you you have to be here and that's the end of it. So if the middle school is the culminating section for the kids, to make sure that the kids are safe, then that way the parents know where to pick them up. They all have to come back to the middle school area. They all have to be wherever it is that they are, and then that's the end of it. And then the other ones, they're adults. I mean, they can walk back. They don't have to. And then if there's any kids involved with the Remembrance Day parade, since I'm involved in that one, parents are usually marching with their kids to begin with, so they would be responsible for their own kids. But in the thing with the Memorial Day parade, it's, if it's the principal that's in charge of getting the kids together for whatever group, then those kids would say, then you have to be back at this spot. They can organize their own parents to meet them up wherever it is that the parade ends, and they pick them up, then go back. I've seen so many people from sitting on my front porch.
We're getting a little bit off
Well, no,
track
I'm
here.
just saying, I've
Let-
seen kids on my front porch when I sit there, that they're just walking back, there's no adults, and
Yeah.
but that's a different subject, that's for the schools and stuff.
Let me get us back on track here a little bit. So, speaking about the Memorial Day parade specifically, if we are looking at these kind of numbers, or the numbers
Adjusted down numbers.
minus what Wes has discussed with the chief, that still pretty much prices the committee out of some of those options, most of those options. So I think we have to decide or figure out if we are looking to compromise, if we are looking to partner, if we are not looking to partner, if we are, what is the feeling of council about how we want to move forward with this? Because I mean, it's been made apparent to me by the committee here that they're willing to pay $1,500 and that's it. So what do we? how would we like to progress from here? If these are the costs that staff is suggesting for these different parade routes, and that's why I suggested a shorter parade route that could potentially fall within the window of the amount of money that they're willing to spend. How does council feel about that? Is that something that we would like to look at? Do we not, or should we just move on?
These numbers are fairly hard.
Right.
I mean, that's what it costs the borough.
Right.
Period.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, anything that is not absorbed by the sponsor or whoever's holding these events falls back on taxpayers.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a pretty safe statement that we're going to have to take a really hard look at taxes for next year as it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to listen to constituents telling me that I wouldn't have to raise taxes if I didn't help sponsor parades and special events.
Right. Right.
And I think they have a valid point.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to see the parades go away, but at the same time, if we can't afford them, we can't afford them.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the Memorial Day has a special problem because they're 5 months away.
Right.
And as a guy who's worked on a lot of parades, that's not a lot of time. 4 months away. Yeah, you're right. 4 months away. See, they just lost a month and 2 seconds.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, I understand their problem. They're probably behind already where they want to be.
Right. I mean, is the feeling of council? I mean, so assuming, and not just saying my idea is the only idea, but assuming that if we did a short parade route to the cemetery, at least for this year, until we have some more time to maybe discuss, working up with some other compromise in the future, is that a potential plan? I mean, if we could, if they asked for a parade route that's not one of these 4 options, yeah. I mean, I'm just trying. Personally, I would like to see Memorial Day parade this year. I don't want to continue a discussion of, who's going to end up paying for it if they're unwilling and it seems like council is somewhat unwilling.
Chief, I would ask, is it possible to maybe work this backwards, start with a $1,500 number and design a route based on how much we could spend on this parade?
I think we could probably do that. I'm going to look to my 2 experts in the back of the room. If we built, yeah, if we were to build it backwards from the cemetery, and figure out where we could go for $1,500, not including, what it costs for my time and the 2 sergeant time, I think we could do that. I think it's going to come in around the short parade route. If the route you're suggesting, and I'm going to say it again, just so I'm on the same page with you. I think the route you're suggesting is middle school on Lefevre, out Lefevre to Baltimore, left on Baltimore, and all the way down Baltimore to the National Cemetery.
Yeah, either entrance, whichever works out the best.
Is that something you guys could do?
There's
I guess
one on Baltimore, and then there's one on Steinway.
There's only one on
Steinway would significantly increase the cost.
Right.
Steinway incredibly increases the cost.
Right.
And
The other thing too is, we have other organizations that have parades. So are we gonna get into negotiating with all of the other nonprofits that, I'm just putting that
Right.
out there.
Well,
And then
and
we're customizing everything.
right,
so,
and I don't. I mean, that seems to be what has happened in the past. Everything is customized, but I'm sitting here thinking. I'm thinking about the first year walk. I mean, the first year walk is a customized route for specific reasons. And why does the Halloween parade, in the route that the Halloween parade is? I don't know. I don't know why. Other than ending, like the Remembrance Day parade and the Memorial Day parade, other than ending at the at the cemetery, I don't know where the route comes from. Why has it changed? Why was it something, a dozen years ago? I don't know. This is all history that I don't know.
Usually what the sponsor is requesting the borough to do.
Right, and so what I'm saying is that I think that suggesting these parade routes makes a lot of sense. We need to cut down on the amount of time that it takes to come up with these costs between you and Robbie and potentially parking. But I think that it may take a little time to siphon that down to those particular options. And then what happens when we get another group that wants to put on another parade that doesn't follow any of these routes?
Well, that's the point, is you standardize these and these are your options, pick one.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I don't know what are we to the point that we want to say every parade has to go this route? I don't know. I think once we start building infrastructure, which is part of the discussion here that we haven't talked about yet, I think that's the point when we say, okay, this is the parade route. But
Well, I would just like to point out as well, we can't get to the point where we're saying every parade needs to go this route, because now you've created another security concern for us to deal with, because now everybody knows how that parade's going to go. And that's almost as bad as not putting any barricades or anything in place. So we need to have some options, which was another reason in my mind for more parade routes. And there's some other things on the table, but I think what you're getting at, Jake, is we don't have enough time to figure those out for Memorial Day parade this year. I mean, we've got some quotes for different barricading systems that'll significantly reduce manpower time, but the initial capital outlay is tremendous. The standardization should reduce it some. And I think from what I heard from Mr. Decker is there's concerns about getting some of your things into the parade because of how they have to come in. And I think what we may be able to work that in is we'll pick them up on Baltimore Street. If that's one of your major concerns, other than it being shortened, I think we could pick them up on Baltimore at the closure point.
I think that probably, if you don't mind me speaking,
Please.
just say that probably what I'm thinking about that might be, right, anything that would be at least, I don't know what to consider the length of the bed, right, in which like the Huey helicopter. I think there are very few vehicles like that we usually have in the parade that would be more of a challenge, right?
I think if we picked it up on Baltimore, we could get it through one of our gaps and barricades, because it's got to be a certain length to be on the road, so it'll fit between designated gaps.
I mean, it typically loads up at the American Legion because it takes some veterans who are riding in it, and then typically it would just come straight down the middle and sit there, because that way it's not trying to make that turn, because that was always a concern. And so if we're talking if we try to bring down Lefevre, it's not going to happen. So I mean, if we're talking about moving it up to Baltimore for having the staging, that would probably work. But I mean, where my concern again would be crowd density. Would be the only thing I would be worried about.
But it's feasible. That's my main point. Is it's feasible for us to compromise on that.
This is the short-term discussion.
Right. This is and yeah, I wanted to
Because the letter we
make that
received,
point.
I mean, it's hard to ignore that the letter we received asked for a fixed fee of $1,500 for 2019 and all future years. And unfortunately, our labor costs go up every year, and that's just a reality we have to deal with. Even our labor cost for our auxiliaries changes, and that's a very low figure, but I mean, the security concerns we deal with do require Act 120 certified police.
Well, I think the big part of this discussion is the fact that nobody wants parade to go away, and it's just a matter of is everybody willing to compromise to a certain point to make it happen this year, which would give us more time, and the committee more time to work this out for future years.
Right. I mean, that's kind of where I was going with this. I just wanted to make sure that everybody's on board with it.
I think if we move forward that way, we get a committee together, we can find sponsors as we move forward.
Right.
Because we feel strongly that the veterans, should have this parade. So if we could work together as we move forward, compromise this year, I'm sure we could get money subsequent years that we wouldn't have to ask the taxpayer to do. But we would work with them to
That's
do.
the end question you have to be aware of, and the long-term discussion is, are you asking the taxpayers to pay for the parade or not?
And the sponsorship, I think, should fall in the organization that is actually, organizing the parade, not Borough Council. I mean, and are we willing to compromise with these other organizations that come forward too? That's the
Yeah.
other question we have to ask ourselves.
Right. This is gonna be a
Right.
dozen, 52 different discussions
Right.
if we open this up too far. Because, I mean,
Right.
Charles already said it was 52 permits. What happens when that's 52 discussions? That's our year's worth
And
of.
I'm not willing to go into, infinity here and say, well, yeah, we'll lock in the cost, because I wouldn't do that to other borough councils in the future. I don't see that we can't do that.
Right, exactly.
I was gonna
To
add
other
that,
borough
Larry.
councils.
We can't do that. So what we're looking at is a $700 difference. Is that correct? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
You say you have 1,500, we're saying the total cost is 22. So the question, I guess, is can you come up with the other 700 is what, I guess the question is.
No, I don't believe that's your
I'm sorry?
question. I apologize. I mean, I'm not trying to be
Yeah,
disrespectful
no, that's
because
okay.
you're already you don't know what the cost is of a shortened route, for one. For two, is you're looking at the estimate being $3,200, which is obviously more than $700.
I was
more than
looking at that
$700
short.
$1,500.
I was looking at the short.
Yeah,
period
yeah,
there.
I mean,
Yeah.
I understand that. I
Right.
mean, and the only thing I could say is, we need to know for this year what's gonna happen.
And I agree with John. I don't think anybody on council wants to see the Memorial Day Parade go away or people in the community. But the question is, is it going to land on the doorstep of the taxpayers in the borough of Gettysburg? That's the question,
If I may, just to help advance this, I think.
Yeah, sorry. We need to.
What we're talking about, a short route is a new short route.
Okay.
Yeah.
It goes, and it's on the screen here, it goes from Lefevre down Baltimore, stays on Baltimore, and ends at the cemetery, which is essentially Route A. That would be the new short route, and I think, based on what Chief was saying, it would probably fall in the $1,500 range.
Oh.
And I
Ish.
don't.
I mean, I'm not committing to that right now, because we haven't really looked at it, but.
No, I mean, like I said,
But that's a significantly shorter route than any of the other 3 routes
It
currently
is, and I think I could
proposed.
even run that, which would actually be good. That's a joke. The other one, I think I'd be, most of us will be out of breath even trying to get farther away. But that would be, from those attending, that would be definitely a challenge.
Yeah, with the crowd size.
But.
Yeah, squeezing all those people into that short route. Yeah.
But in the short term, I mean, and this is what I spoke about the other night at your meeting, is it's if it's a little bit uncomfortable for all of us, then it's a good compromise, at least for now, until we can come up with a better solution. I mean, does that sound about right? Because I think that, ideally we want to have the grandeur of the Memorial Day Parade. I feel like most of us here want to have a nice Memorial Day Parade. You want to have a nice Memorial Day Parade. It's just unfortunate that the numbers aren't coalescing at the moment. That doesn't mean that they always will not coalesce. Certainly, you've stated that you only want to pay X amount of dollars. We're trying to work within that budget and try to come up with something that makes sense, that we can continue to work forward. Does that sound appropriate? At least for now. And like I said, we haven't even entered into our discussion of other things that we would like to do to maybe try to work out some sort of compromise. But just to give you and your members an idea of the direction that we're moving. Does that sound?
So that we can at least move forward.
Yeah, because you are up against the wall as far as, trying to plan for this thing, and, we understand that, and I think that we want to work with you.
So if council's amenable and so are you folks, I think Chief and I could put our heads together tomorrow and look at this new alternative condensed route and give it some hard numbers.
I just sent the sergeants over to see if they could find the estimate for Remembrance Day 2018.
'Cause it's the same
It's the
route.
same route that we're proposing. And it's probably gonna be a little higher, even though it was 2018, because there were tons and tons of additional security precautions built into the 2018 Remembrance Day.
Well, that's, yeah, I mean,
But so what I'm asking is if this is the compromise this year to get us through Memorial Day this year, then we can deal with the broader issue moving forward after that.
I mean, if the commission's okay with it, I could be okay with this year. My concern is that, and it's really not what I envision as the outcome, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm used to the route as it has been. It's Mr. Jones, correct? Yeah, my concern, one of my major concerns is Commander Jones expressed with the density, and how much that does or does not impact the needs for police officers, because a more dense event, I can't really speak to that, so.
Typically, more dense events, you look at more security simply because there's higher risk of something going wrong.
But I'd let the professionals work that out. That's their. I mean, I don't have a police background. I have a bit of a fire background, but it's a different animal. So I'd let them sort that out. I think that this is probably a 1-year Band-Aid, though.
Yeah.
Certainly.
That's all we
you're
need, right? At least for now. I mean,
Well, for this most somber of parades,
yeah,
yes.
a Band-Aid gets us through May.
But we have other events,
Yeah.
and certainly the Remembrance Day Parade is a significantly somber remembrance, I think, also.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also Veterans Day. There's a woman who'd like to comment. So.
But
Just to clarify one thing.
Yeah.
I think what these guys are looking for is a firm commitment on the part of council that the parade is going to go forward so that they can begin their play. Whether it's obviously it can't be a formal vote, but a consensus or some that they can work on and leave with the assurance that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
At $1,500 contribution by them.
But, that's why I was waiting to see what the chief had to say here.
Yeah,
He's working diligently on something.
Mayor, you're right. I think we need to give the commission some direction tonight, regardless of your discussion and how to settle the bill for 2019. Council will need to ratify that at your next meeting because it is a deviation from your fee schedule that you've already enacted.
Let me
But we
just
can
get-
do that at a business meeting later while they're off planning the
Yeah.
next event.
Jenny?
Let me just say one thing. This is Memorial Day Parade. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's the start of the tourist season. Why couldn't Destination Gettysburg pick up the difference?
Oh,
that's a question for Patty's committee.
If that wasn't clear.
Question for Norris Flowers and Destination Gettysburg. Call them up and ask them.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Yes,
I mean,
we had. But in regards to asking for them to cover the total expense of it, no, we had not had that conversation.
Well, I would say if they cover the difference, you pay $1,500, they pay what the difference is.
Yeah.
Because they're advertising it on their website, they're bringing people to town, people come here to see that parade. So why shouldn't they help?
And this could be a solution for next year. And I think that's, I mean, that's perfectly valid, and I think that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to come up with a solution for this year, and then we'll figure out what's gonna happen next year.
I think Ms. Lawson hears from most of the same people. All I can hear in my head right now are the voices of dozens of constituents echoing your sentiment. Because that's what they always say. It's not specific to this particular event, however, it's routinely said. And the sum of funds we're talking about versus what they collect, it would be very appropriate.
Well, considering that the pillow tax, part of it is to pay for law enforcement.
Yeah.
You know, that's,
This
in the bill.
Not to insult anyone from the greater Waynesville area, but this is essentially a county parade. I mean, there are other observances, and I'm aware of that, but this is, if not larger, I think it draws from well across the Mid-Atlantic.
And just again, for the taxpayers of Gettysburg, you know, many of you are in this room, and we all are taxpayers in the borough. You know, we pay pretty high taxes in the borough, and this year was a tough budget discussion. You know, the police department had requests that weren't filled. There were other departments that had requests that weren't filled. And so we had, you know, the borough manager did yeoman's work in terms of presenting budgets to the council to vote on, and taxes were not raised this year. But you know, we can't promise that that's going to happen in future years, and so that's what we're dealing with in terms of a, you know, a larger picture here, and that is an issue. So,
Chief, did you?
there's a question.
I'm looking at our bill to Remembrance Day for 2018, or our estimate for Remembrance Day for 2018. And just for police services without any public works in it, it was $1543.35 for just police services for that one. So,
Okay.
Again, it may not be as heavily.
Closing the gap.
Yeah, it is closing the gap.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Chad.
So, forgive me for not knowing, but I will be doing talking to Destination Gettysburg, because I agree with Jenny. So my question is, has the borough sent, and forgive me if you already have you sent a letter to Destination Gettysburg stating your position on the fact that they should, or that you believe they should be giving some type of donations to such parades that are doing such good work for our tourism?
We've had a number of discussions with them on many things, including the Brown Building on Baltimore Street that was given to the borough. That could be a good information center. That could be public restrooms for people at that end of the town. You've talked to the Garden Club and the Flower Project with the flowers to beautify the town.
Right.
Yeah, there have been a number of conversations with Destination Gettysburg, I know, from either the staff and council members in the past. But as community members, you certainly are, you know, they
Absolutely.
collect tax money, so
Of
you
course.
can contact them, sure.
Absolutely. But has borough sent something on borough letterhead to Destination Gettysburg that could then be printed in the Gettysburg Times?
You mean about the parades in particular?
That I agree with,
Mhm.
that Destination Gettysburg needs to be given some of that money.
I don't think on this particular topic,
They
but on
need
other
to-
topics.
They need to be supporting, especially the parades that bring so much tourism to our town.
Just like the
I would
Gettysburg,
encourage
just
the
like the
Borough
Christmas
Council
Festival,
consider-
where they were MIA, so, you
I
know.
would encourage
Yeah.
the Borough Council to consider writing some type of blanket statement, if you will, boilerplate statement on borough letterhead that can then be printed in the Gettysburg Times.
Yeah.
So that then then your constituents, all of them, can then start phone calling to Destination Gettysburg.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a committee currently looking at certain discussions with Destination.
Thank you for that letter.
All right, so, yeah.
So, a couple times, the infamous Patty Lawson
Yeah.
yellow tax committee
Yeah.
has been invoked tonight in conversation. It is an ad hoc committee. It's not a public committee.
Right.
Right now, the committee is doing research and.
Right.
And we have community people on part,
Yeah,
as part of
and-
this committee.
And so,
You know, if a position
your-
opens up for that.
Yeah.
your sentiment is well received and
And
has
it's been
broad
echoed.
support.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
thank
we
you.
need to be strategic about
Sure.
certain things, and that's what this committee is doing to figure out the best way to approach Destination Gettysburg.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so let's circle back around. Are we to a consensus that we're willing to move forward with the Memorial Day Parade for this year? And we're in some sort of compromise in one way or another? Is that
If we can keep costs at $1,500.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
That's
if we
the
can.
bottom line, that's the
Right,
rubber hits the road.
Right,
Right?
okay.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, right, I mean, so we're.
Access points there, that helps.
Yeah, okay, so we're willing to work on this. Is that sufficient for your event for this year? And then we can have a discussion after the Memorial Day Parade this year, if we decide to, change things, or you decide to change things, or we can maybe come up with some other compromise. Does that work? Okay, all right. All right, so let's move on from there.
Okay, so the other bill that had lots of consternation associated with it was the Halloween parade.
Right.
I'll let Chief Glennie speak to why the huge discrepancy in the quoted bill versus the actual bill. There is some narrative here explaining some of the gist of that. And again, if we looked at the medium parade route, which was the route that went through the square, which has historically recently been the Halloween parade route, we found a way to get the Halloween parade's bill down into that universe of bill. And essentially what we're proposing is to take the balance of the donation that paid the balance of the commission's Memorial Day, apply that to the bill for the Halloween parade, take the light tower off of their bill, and consider that a borough in-kind sponsorship. The price for that was just about $415. And then essentially comp all of the large gaps in the parade and the rain date that were out of our control because of Mother Nature and some issues with the staging of the parade. Not the borough's issue, but nonetheless, the large gaps did force our staff to remain on site for extended periods of time at overtime rates, which is how that bill ended up getting so out of control. So if you take those and you do not bill for the Christmas parade, Main Street Gettysburg has paid the cost to close the streets for the Christmas parade because the Christmas parade was incorporated into the overall programming of the Christmas festival. So Main Street Gettysburg picked up the cost of the Christmas parade. So if you do not bill for the Christmas parade and you reduce by the light tower the balance of the $1,000 contribution and you comp $1,500 for rain date and extended hours, that would reduce their bill to just under $3130, which is in the ballpark of the cost of a normal medium route parade.
We're
as
still sort of
proposed.
in the discussion here of dealing with the past versus dealing with the future.
Correct.
Okay, so resolving that, which was
Give us.
Just so everyone knows, the Christmas parade that Main Street Gettysburg costs $4,400.
All right, so what are everybody's feelings on this one?
Well, here again, being the old guy, part of the reason the Halloween parade goes the way it goes is because when the J.C.'s were running it, they wanted streets that were brighter lit more than the other streets, which means you have to stay on the main streets.
Right.
And so that's why it goes up Baltimore Street, through the square, down York Street, back to Lefevre Street, as opposed to Middle Street or any of the other side streets. It was a lighting issue because that parade's held at night.
All right.
Just for clarification, Charles, when you say the gaps, you're talking about how nothing happens beyond the square for 20 minutes at a time?
That's correct.
I feel like that should have been expected. It happens every year, so.
Yeah, but it does make staff stay at an overtime rate for extended periods.
What is the cause of those gaps? What's going on? Is it just being reviewed at the judges?
Well, I don't think there's anybody here from that committee to speak to that. Jenny?
I do have a question,
Yeah.
because I am with the Eagles. They give $10,000 for both the parades. So if now Main Street is taking over Christmas, where's the balance of that money going?
give it to.
Did it go to the parade committee, or did it come directly to the borough?
I am not quite sure where it went. That would be from
Not having someone here from that committee, I don't know.
They
Figure
sponsor
that.
$5,000 for each parade.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to continue with the $10,000, but if it's not being used, they're gonna cut that. So another suggestion we just spoke about, I said I will go to the trustees meeting, and ask them if that balance could go towards Memorial Day.
Yeah. I don't really know where to go with this one, only because there was no one here from the committee to really discuss.
But
What-
that's
what-
that's
Yeah,
interesting.
Council does have a decision to make, though, because you heard what was said at the December 9th meeting. This is what they're paying, and this is what they're paying, but that does not fly with
What was that number?
the fee resolution as council's passed it.
What was that number that they paid?
I don't recall that. Do you?
Was that up there a little bit further?
Yeah, I thought they
I thought I saw
paid
the
like
number.
$4,000, and they said that was what they were paying. That's what
I
Mr.
don't recall. I'd
Mr.
have to-
Hartman
It's hard to
paid.
remember the details through the anger.
Yeah.
1687.50.
There you go. How much?
1687.50.
Yeah. That was what the.
That was the quote.
That was the quote, correct.
I have no idea from my side how the Halloween parade folks got a quote of $1687.50. That was not, that would have been probably not even our overtime for the Halloween parade. Because I'll tell you, we as the police department, you know, although we do it, we do not like closing the square, especially now that trucks are permitted to go through the borough. We barely, and I mean barely, have enough staff to cover that closure. And if something else happens, we don't have enough staff to cover that closure. Anything through the square requires us to put that truck detour in place, and unless we man that truck detour as well, trucks can't make those turns. We had 2 truck accidents today, one on Friday, minor, but still, a truck took down a pedestrian crossing thing down on Steinway today. So if we don't man that truck detour, they're hitting buildings, they're taking out signs, they're knocking off the curbs. We need a way, and I don't know the answer to this. We need PennDOT to tell us as a borough, how do we close this borough to truck traffic during special events? And I don't think they're going to do it completely. My opinion on that, I don't think they're going to do it completely. But I would like to see it at least go back to what it was. But for special events, how do we detour trucks around the borough? Because the bottom line is the borough's not built for trucks to circumnavigate. It doesn't work. So if I put all the auxiliary officers out on the detour, then I've gotten under control for the parade. And then, you know, I'll be frank, and I'm hesitant to say it in a public meeting, but then the security internally in the parade suffers because I don't have enough policemen, or we don't have enough policemen to put them in the spaces we need to through the parade. So as far as parades and closing the entire square, as the voice of your police department, I'm telling you, we don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
Now, I understand you're probably going to come back to me and say, hey, we're doing that anyway, but we don't want to do that anymore. Closing half the square is not an issue, especially if we get the lights like we have
Well,
for
we're
the
doing it
Christmas
for
festival.
$4,000.
What's that?
We're doing it for $4,000.
It's
right?
going to be, and I mean,
It's one of those parade routes.
Sergeant Weicker and Sergeant Pruitt can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's going to be every bit of that with overtime to run stuff through the square.
So maybe the solution for the Halloween parade is to find another parade route as well.
That would be my recommendation. And again, I know I'll take some heat for that. But you know, the Halloween parade, to run it down middle, half the route that the Memorial Day parade used to take and turn it back in Baltimore, go up to Baltimore, or go up to out middle to Baltimore down to Lefevre and back in, will be a much cheaper alternative because we don't have to close the square. Now, I've heard they can put their reviewing stand, I guess, in front of the library. We discussed that before. But the tradition for the Halloween parade has been going through the square, and you know, I get that the square is Gettysburg-esque, and that's what they want to do, and I get the light thing, but just with the trucks and the traffic detour, when I used a long dinner party for an example. You know, we thought we were big shots, we had it all figured out, we were going to make that half a square two-way. It didn't work, and every time a truck came through, we were wiping out the two-way and stopping traffic everywhere, to the point that we pushed regular traffic off of Route 30 back to Middle Street to go through town and save the square just for trucks. That's how much of a problem it was, and then we had to control the other traffic, so we had folks tied up with that. The square is a problem with us, especially when you throw in the big trucks. Especially when you throw in the big trucks. So if we could shorten that Halloween parade route, that bill is gonna be a lot less.
So, at this point, do we wish to continue the conversation of setting these routes for the Halloween parade, not having anybody from the committee here to discuss that? And or knowing where the money from the Eagles goes? I feel like there's a lot of unknowns, and there's no one here to answer this question. So, I mean,
Well, that's the future. That's the discussion about the future.
right, and I
think
think
it's a
we
wise
need to talk about the future
Yeah.
in this
I mean, I think
discussion tonight. I would like to.
To their question is a valid point. If there was $1,600 paid and they donated $5,000, that leaves a few question marks.
Right. So I feel like if everybody's okay with it, let's maybe jump over the Halloween parade. Is everybody all right with that?
How to
And,
deal with
and let's
2019.
move on to the rest of staff's presentation about the.
Okay. In the longer term, staff is beginning to look at infrastructure that could be utilized or built within some of these preferred routes. That once it's in place, the costs for moving 2-ton blocks around town goes way down because you have infrastructure that's permanently in place. What are we talking about? The industry has a lot of interesting things out there. One is called modular vehicle devices. This would, something like this, it's actually used heavily in Israel. They are very good at securing themselves there for obvious reasons. So these folks in Israel know that this works for them. Why this is preferable to 2-ton blocks is it's very easily movable. So if you need an emergency vehicle, this can easily be moved. It's on wheels, and you just lift up a lever, and suddenly you can push it out of the way. So this is one of the options we are currently looking at, and the police department did get a quote for this, which we probably shouldn't talk about today because that might be part of a larger discussion.
They could double as bicycle racks too.
They do kind of look like bike racks. A much more handsome idea is to place bollards in the street. These bollards come up out of the street when you have an event, and they go back down into the street and just look like decorative pieces of equipment that are in your street. We do not have a quote for this, but I can guarantee you it won't be inexpensive. But once they're in place, any number of events could be secured on the square or a parade route that's predetermined. So staff is currently looking at these types of options. This is obviously something that's not going to be achieved in the next year or two, but it's probably, given where we're at in our security environment, something we should begin to consider. So I don't think we can get in the weeds on this today, Mr. President,
No.
but this is just some samples.
Yeah,
that
I just
things we're
wanted to see
looking at.
pictures and get people thinking about ideas of stuff for the future.
Yeah.
Mr. President, I have a question
Yes, ma'am.
related to that. Where would the money for these new devices come from?
That's probably the conversation with another organization for a future date.
And can we, if we're no longer using the cement blocks, can we sell them? Are they sellable?
We rented them.
Aren't they more or less?
No, we own them.
We
They're-
own 'em.
Oh, we bought them?
Oh, yeah.
Aren't they more or less a waste product, Rob?
They're not very.
They're running.
They're
over
not,
concrete.
they're like $30 a block.
Yeah,
They're
they're
not that
running over
expensive.
concrete. It's more or less a waste
I
product.
thought that was
It's
the
running-
rental.
It's a recycling product. When concrete plants deliver concrete,
Yeah,
they bring
right.
it back, they pour those. They have them all set up to pour them, they pour them for a little bit of nothing.
Yeah.
They would have lost that money
They're
otherwise.
$30 more.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we do own them, and now we own a lot of them.
I was gonna say,
All right.
can we sell what we don't need, and
Right.
even if it's a small amount of money, then take it out of the bollards price, whatever that happens.
Yeah. All right.
Did we beat that horse enough?
Yeah,
tonight?
yeah, I think we beat that more than enough, and that's the first horse.
Where do events that are not parades fall into your fee structure? And I'm curious as to the fee structure for antique shows, tree lighting.
All of those are billed at the fee resolution rate, just, so it's a special event. It's not just a parade. A parade is a special event, the antique show is a special event, a car show is a special event. So it's all done by the same fee structure.
And with the, because I know the square doesn't close for the antique shows, and the tree lighting does for a couple hours, nothing major. But the price for the New Year's Eve is so much higher than the tree lighting, and I'm curious as to why.
Time. And the New Year's Eve celebration for police and public works wasn't near $5,000. I don't know where.
I don't know where that number came from.
I don't either. But we significantly reduced the prices for the tree lighting and New Year's Eve this year because we blocked the road with trucks. Instead of having to set the cement barricades, we were able to use heavy pieces of equipment from Public Works across the 4 intersections. And the only places that had to have cement were alleys coming in. So the main roads were blocked with trucks to block from vehicle rammings. And then the reason that the New Year's Eve celebration is significantly more than the tree lighting is time, as Charles mentioned. And it's more than 2 times longer than the tree lighting ceremony. And we had to, when you're talking about security, and New Year's Eve, when you kick past midnight, is overtime with holiday pay, and so there's just all those things going against us. And another reason I wanted to talk about, I'm going to digress a little bit to the Halloween parade because Charles hit on a little bit ago. Another thing we might want to think about in your deliberations of how you want to do is no rain dates. Because what happened, especially with the Halloween parade, is we got it all set up for one date using auxiliary police part-time and very few full-timers. Wham, we switched because of the rain, and now we have not so many part-timers available, no auxiliary available, and I'm staffing traffic points with police officers on overtime. And that's where you really start to see the price ratchet up. So that's where we're coming from. But the New Year's Eve event is tough. Again, I'd like to see the New Year's Eve event go to half the square. It'd be much cheaper if we could employ those lights that we talked about. But I don't even know if that's feasible.
And if you're considering taking that over, I would highly encourage you to contact the fire department, because there have been a lot of opinions expressed about how much that causes of a burden.
Exactly.
Not just the danger of the fireworks, but I mean there are 3 or 4 outside agencies that are brought in to make that possible,
Okay.
and that's kind of taken for granted.
Well, and that's one of the things that I don't know about, and so I'm just wondering, I don't know, Charles, if it's possible for you to, I don't know what you have involved in it from your end. Could we get a letter giving us a little bit more detail than what we already know?
Honestly, I don't,
Who would be
we
the person?
never really organized it other than providing the police services, so I honestly don't know what is involved in planning that event.
And I can give you the contact information you need from that fire department
Because
perspective. but-
apparently that's something that fell through in my investigation, because I thought that it would be like what we do. We don't deal with anybody else for the tree lighting except the borough. If there's other people we have to deal with, I'm not aware of it.
Well, actually, the borough did do that in the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I just wondered, who do I talk to? Thank you.
All right. Want to move on to old business now?
We have one new business. left. It
Oh,
should be
oh,
quick.
right,
This was
yeah.
added last
Forgot
minute
about that.
with a letter from Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs. Let me just preface this, and it's very important from a staff perspective and a manager's perspective that the council be very involved in these organizations that you are represented in, because it's PSAB, it's PML that advocate for policy positions on your behalf at the state level. The radar bill always comes to mind. PML is a champion for the radar bill. And when you send them a resolution supporting the use of local radar, for example, that gets added to the broader voice, and they can go to the state legislature with more authority behind them. So, with that said, PSAB's asking if anyone on council is interested in nominating someone from our region to serve as second vice president. If you are, just potentially forward one of those names to us, and we can turn that into a resolution for your next business meeting.
Great. All right. Now on to old business.
This is PBS 2019-9. It's more of an informational item for council and the public. The borough is now the owner of 340 Baltimore Street, which we all hope to be the future site, or the site of a future Gettysburg Community Center. A lot of work to go to make that happen, but nonetheless, the borough did receive that gift in December. It's filed at the county. We own the deed and we own it. It's ours to deal with moving forward.
All right.
It's actually very exciting.
That is pretty exciting. Any questions? Moving on. All right.
Okay.
Chad?
So, on the agenda is discussion about the Stormwater Ordinance, Chapter 17. I'm going to use the opportunity to talk about, real briefly, about that and Chapter 8, which is your floodplain ordinance. And the reason why I want to discuss that is because we got a letter just today, and that's going to take priority in terms of the schedule of what we need to get done in terms of our business this year. So, first, and most of you heard the discussions in the fall. I've presented a couple of times in November and December about planning commission's wish that now that we have a stormwater authority to change the responsibilities for permitting stormwater approvals from them to the stormwater authority. I've presented that to the council. The council seemed generally well received. The next step is to amend our stormwater ordinance. Haven't had a chance to sit down with the solicitor yet, but we do intend to start working on revisions to the stormwater ordinance that will change that to the stormwater authority. The question that always comes up is, so what happens like in a land development plan that still goes to the planning commission? They have approval authority over land development plans. The only planning commission, by the way, that I know of, it's like that. All the other municipalities in the state of Pennsylvania, the elected body does this. But in Gettysburg, the planning commission has approval authority. They would still have that responsibility for land development plans. It's just the stormwater component of it would have to go to the stormwater authority. Just like the sanitary sewer portion goes to the Gettysburg Municipal Authority. So if land development came in, they had to get approval from stormwater, approval from stormwater authority, may need approval from the fire department. Once they get all of those approvals, then the planning commission can approve the land development plan. So that's the path forward. That's how we intend to move forward. But like I said, we need to revise your ordinance. So coming up in the future, my guess is it won't be next month. It'll probably be over the next several months. We'll start providing with some drafts of all of the items in the stormwater ordinance that need to change to make that happen. But like I said, the floodplain ordinance has also become a higher priority. Just a real quick history, and this is mostly for Mr. Moon's sake, because I know a lot of you have heard this, but starting in 2018, FEMA did start changing the maps. Charles and I went to a bunch of seminars on it. In 2019, we started distributing those new maps. That's the flood insurance rate maps. Also in 2019, the borough sent out notifications to all the property owners that were getting changed. We received 2 appeals during that time. The 2 property owners that did appeal, we forwarded it on to FEMA, and those were both denied. So essentially the maps, the draft maps that they put out are exactly the maps that we're going to get. We also had a CAV report. We had a visit from a person from FEMA. It was a community assistance visit, is the CAV acronym. He presented 4 things that we had to deal with. One is the hazard mitigation plan. Charles talked about your emergency management plan a little bit tonight, and that's something that we piggyback on with the county. So there's really not a whole lot that we have to do with that. One is the community rating system. If we don't deal with this FEMA thing, our constituents will have to pay more taxes, or at least the ones that are in the floodplain will have to pay more, not taxes, but more insurance on their properties in the floodplain. And then the last 2 here are about the violations. We need to not only mitigate some of the things that the FEMA rep pointed out to us, but also we need to come up with a plan for how we're going to try to avoid those things in the future. Fast forwarding to today, we received this letter of final determination that finalizes this flood insurance rate map, and it starts our 90-day clock for adopting a new flood ordinance. So that's why I wanted to bring that up here tonight as well, that you'll see, if not next month, on the following month, we'll be having some motions on your agenda to adopt a new flood insurance, or to a new flood ordinance. We are getting advice from FEMA on that new ordinance. We've been provided a contact person, Leslie Rhodes. Carly and I are going to be going to the training with her next week. It may be the simplest just for us to repeal and replace, close our old ordinance, adopt a new ordinance that's consistent with the FEMA's regulation. So we'll be talking to her about that and getting guidance from FEMA as we move forward. I also wanted to make note that I just used Carly's name in the past, and partially because I was kind of filling the gap for Becky when she was here. We do intend to move forward with Carly being the floodplain administrator and not me. And the reason why is because if you're building something in the floodplain, sometimes it's just a building permit. It doesn't go to the engineer. If it's not associated with a land development or a street project or something like that, it just goes right to your code enforcement officer's PMCA, and it bypasses me. So it didn't really make sense for me to be the floodplain administrator, not in a community like Gettysburg where you have a full-time planning director. So it made more sense for Carly to have that role, and then she can divvy up the responsibilities. If it needs to go to PMCA for a building permit, or if it needs to come to me for like a land development, she can divvy that up. But she's going to become the new floodplain administrator moving forward. That's something that we're going to report back to FEMA in this CAV report, that to kind of clean up some of our in-house permitting. So again, really the steps moving forward here is Carly and I are going to be working on responding to this CAV reporting from FEMA. The new maps are going to be official in 90 days, and in that time we're going to have to adopt a new floodplain ordinance. Some more to come on that in the future, unless you have any questions for me for now.
Charles, did you want to add anything?
It's just really compelling stuff.
I can imagine. All right.
I tried to be as brief as possible.
Yeah.
At 9 o'clock.
We're compelled to do.
Yeah.
We are compelled to
And we're
do it.
compelled to do it. So.
Any questions or concerns about that? All right, moving on up. All right, now on to the non-discrimination ordinance.
Before we get to the non-discrimination ordinance,
Yes.
I had 2 further questions about special events. Could we just
Yeah,
clear those up?
yeah, fine.
And it slipped by too quickly because I was watching John pound on his high-tech computer. First of all, that policy briefing summary was top-notch. Good grief, so much information in there that made things clear. The history was terrific to know, the comparisons of the events. Kudos, Charles, that was an excellent, excellent document. Where does the Parade of Chrome fall into this?
We talked about that.
It is really not a parade. It's more of a ride, and they use what we call a rolling closure. So the streets aren't really closed. We just lead it and follow it, and what's in between that is closed, but otherwise it's open. So when they're going through the square, because it's relatively short if you think about it. It might be, if you're sitting at the square, it might take it, 5 or 10 minutes to get through at the most. So it's really not a parade. It's just them out for a motorcycle ride. And we kind of go ahead of them and behind them to make sure they're not hitting anything. Or now there's security concerns there as well. You know, could somebody drive into the parade of chrome and you know, I'll just be frank. The reason that we don't have as many security concerns there is that the retaliation outside the police realm for anybody trying to ram a group of bikers is probably much more severe than what they get from the police department and the courts. So, but that's where that falls.
And the students' walk would fall into the same category, not a parade. It isn't the students' parade.
It does, and it's generally a smaller group. I mean, it's a group of I don't know what the numbers are.
700.
6 to
6 or 700. But again, we do a rolling closure on that, and we will man the intersections as we're coming up through. That way, I have a sworn law enforcement officer. If it looks like somebody's going to ram or do the unthinkable, we can use, you know, things at our disposal to stop them. Then the problem with the regular parade is we don't have the staff to staff every intersection and the blocks internally.
And my last question, what does becoming a borough-sponsored special event get for that organization? Why is there an advantage to being named a borough-sponsored special event?
So there are, we didn't talk about this, and we could probably talk about it more in detail at a future date. So there are, when you look at the totality of the cost benefit of an event and what it brings to the community, a Halloween parade, and I don't mean to say this in a disparaging way, a Halloween parade serves a niche market. So who is financially benefiting from a Halloween parade? Maybe a couple restaurants. Certainly the kids are having a great time. So it's doing a great job building community. But from the economic cost benefit return on investment, it's serving a niche market. Something larger, a Memorial Day parade, for example, the commission says that becomes a destination to Gettysburg for people far away from Gettysburg. So they come here, they invest in the community by buying an overnight hotel, patronizing our businesses, etc. The Christmas festival serves a very broad constituency in the community. I don't know that there's anyone that didn't make more money than they made 2 years ago, for example, from the Christmas festival. That is why the Christmas festival was also, while it was hosted by Main Street Gettysburg, was sponsored by the municipality, because those funds that were invested through the revenue generated in parking benefited every constituency. Churches made money, nonprofits made money, for-profits made money, and of course everyone had a boatload of fun by building community. So there are different ways to look at various special events and the constituencies that they serve. So that's a broader conversation for what I think is a future conversation.
Okay. Now on to the discrimination ordinance.
Right.
Non-discrimination ordinance. Where would we like to start? Does anybody have any suggestions, ideas? Chad Allen Carr has discussed the resolution. He prefers an ordinance. We have had that discussion a couple times. What are people's feelings on one versus the other? Or yeah.
Jason, congratulations on your success across the state with your 53, 57 communities. Mike, I made a New Year's resolution as well, and it is to be thrifty with taxpayers' dollars. And an ordinance costs more than a resolution. We found this when the Committee for limiting plastic use in the borough came to us asking for an ordinance the first time they came. And I think everyone realizes no one's more concerned about environmental issues than I, in my small way. But I didn't think an ordinance was thrifty enough, and I spoke for it being a resolution. Susan and I researched it, wrote the resolution, ran it by Harry, ran it by the committee who had asked for an ordinance instead, and we chose to do the resolution. And now one of our local markets is coming up with some action of how to address the problem. But we didn't force the local businesses. We are a community of small businesses. We don't have a lot of big industry. And some of the constraints that we put on those businesses is burdensome to them. I prefer to do the resolution now, very strongly worded, that we hope there will not be, we suggest there will not be discrimination in Gettysburg, but to do the lesser costly resolution now, because probably by June, the Supreme Court will announce their decision, and it might make whatever we're going to do a moot point. So why spend the money quickly now when we can do a lesser expensive action and then see what happens? If we need to revisit this in June to come up with a stronger act, that of an ordinance, then we can. But for right now, I support the resolution idea rather than the ordinance idea. And I mean it as no criticism nor downplay, and I'm sorry, Chad, that you feel strongly about that. It's a financial thing of taxpayer dollars for me right now.
Anyone else want to say anything?
I mean, my concerns stand as they were. The equal protections clause of the 14th Amendment, I believe strongly that is helpful in this situation. And I'm sensitive to the free exercise clause of the First Amendment and our duty as a government to fulfill our obligation to religious neutrality. I look back at the ruling of Masterpiece Cake. Justice Stevens' opinion is pretty clear about how that would work. Previously I mentioned about the Catholic Church and their official stance on that. Since that time, we had a former public official targeted on social media for his Catholic religious beliefs. So, I mean, that's where I stand on it, just because of what I see as having occurred, and I do think I certainly don't want anybody discriminated against, but I don't want anyone to be discriminated against because of their religious beliefs either. That's where I stand.
I'm curious what the costs are, Judy. Can you help me understand when you say the taxpayer cost it would cost more to, implement it?
To enforce it. I received 2 contacts from constituents about this issue when it appeared in Jim's article in the paper that this was going to be brought forth. The first gentleman, he did not say which way he wanted us to go. He just questioned about the enforcement. Who's going to do it? How much will it cost? What are the consequences of someone being forced to abide by whatever wording we came up with? Those questions we'd have to address. The second contact came in the form of an email, and that gentleman said at the end, many in town would be concerned about such an ordinance unless it also incorporated a religious or conscience exception. And we'd have to be careful about that and make sure that we weren't forcing businesses to go against their conscience, but at the same time demanding that there not be discrimination in Gettysburg. It's a tricky thing. But Matt and I attended the boot camp for new council people Friday and Saturday. And in there, they talked about the difference between a resolution and an ordinance. And one of the minor differences was the cost.
So I'm new to this process. If I'm out of line, I hope you guys will, gently bring me back into the fold. But to speak to the 2 points from your 2 constituents, my understanding is if we pass an ordinance, then enforcement would fall to the Court of Common Pleas. Is that not the case?
Most of the models we have are a Human Relations Commission, which requires a court stenographer, a solicitor, and those might be the only professional services I'm aware of.
Right.
But we deal with that with civil service. It's a similar type. When we have an appeal, it has to be Terry's time. We have to have a stenographer come in for each of those, and they usually have a minimum number of hours they'll bill for.
Sure. And then the other point was
The enforcement
the enforcement. I was wondering.
and the religious conscience.
Yeah. So just in the spirit of collegial dialogue here, if my religion allows slavery, am I accepted from the 13th Amendment? So if my religion allows discrimination, am I accepted from the 14th Amendment? I'm just asking. Is that something we need to consider? And I think it brings up a greater point that if citizens are asking us to enforce protections that are supposed to be there according to the federal government and we're not, is a civil rights lawsuit where we're not helping that citizen more expensive than crafting this ordinance?
I think what you're getting at is that the abolition of slavery was ordained by the constitutional amendment and subsequent congressional action, whereas what we're discussing specifically to at least the point of gender identity was alluded to in the 14th Amendment with equal protections, codified in Civil Rights Act 1964, but then expanded using executive orders, not legislative action. And I think that is one of the differences, that each administration, as time has gone past from Lyndon Johnson since, has treated what is covered differently. Certain terms appear in the Civil Rights Act, certain terms do not. Race appears, sex appears, gender does not appear. So I don't really think it's appropriate to equate the contents of the Civil Rights Act in our discussion here with LGBTQ plus with the abolition of slavery.
So you don't think somebody would have grounds for a civil rights lawsuit if they were fired from their job specifically for being gay or denied housing?
Well, at the current, if they're denied housing, they can file a complaint. They do have grounds. That's covered on the HUD website. They don't have examples about employment. And that goes back to our conversation point last time. If you have someone open a Catholic bookstore, a Muslim bookstore, must they or must they not? I don't know.
And the last point I would make is I think Judy's exactly right. Rushing to action only to be overturned in 5 months does not make a lot of sense. Waiting to see what happens at the federal level and then acting if we were so compelled, I think makes more sense. I would agree with Judy on that.
I think it's unusual that they've heard a case this year regarding the matter specifically. Where a lot of years they do not.
Yeah.
Any other comments before we move? Jen?
Can we speak on those?
Sure, yeah.
Can I pass that to the professional? That's not the case.
Yes, sure. Happy to share more information following this meeting as well. I could probably share with you 40 local human relations commissions that spend $0. These are voluntary commissions. They meet a couple times a year unless they have a complaint. The idea that there could be, if you have a formal proceeding following an investigation, if that's the method that you choose for how the Human Relations Commission would proceed with the complaint, that's way down the line. For example, in Pittsburgh, I just talked with the executive director of their Human Relations Commission, a city of over 300,000 people. In the past 5 years, they've had one case that has gone to like a court stenographer level. These commissions handle them on a voluntary basis. They have mediation, which is where almost all complaints are settled. Most of these commissions as well in smaller towns in Pennsylvania mainly you only get a few cases in 5-10 years. But having it done, and you have to have the process to investigate these complaints, is so important because it puts everyone on notice that this is a community that protects everyone, that's open for everyone. It's open to business, it's open to visitors. And then also to your point about the Supreme Court case, that's a very limited case related to employment discrimination under Title VII related to gender discrimination. So including gender stereotyping, sexual orientation, gender identity being read into that increasingly through interpretations through some executive branches, but that's not determinative of actually passing a law. That's what you can do at the state level, which is what we're trying to do, but in the meantime, it's up to local towns to pass these ordinances. So it really won't have an impact. It's a federal law that the Supreme Court is dealing with. It does not deal with your local jurisdiction and state law. That's going to be completely untouched, so we still need to pass these laws. At the state level, the Supreme Court won't do anything with that. I hope those few points that you were talking about.
And then we can repeal it.
And you can repeal your ordinance, and many of the ordinances that are adopted, especially in small towns, they're planning to repeal them once the state passes it. But there's no guarantee the state will pass it. You have the ability to take action today and protect people based on who they are. That's a moral mandate that you have to consider as a town. Do you want to be known as the town that supports inclusion for all, or just suggests it?
So, I just have one question real quick, because I feel like we are hearing some contradictory things. So if we were to pass an ordinance that does not necessitate a judicial situation where we would need a stenographer, as they're suggesting, or does it necessitate
It could. It depends.
I mean,
it depends if people are willing to accept the mediation's outcomes.
Correct. And
So
99% of the time, they are settled through mediation.
So theoretically, we could, I mean, the option is on the table to have a resolution, but then also deal with mediation in some way or form, right? Is that not also a possibility?
It
Or-
is. Most of those ordinances include a penalty if the person will not submit to mediation.
Right.
Usually, I think a fine of $500 to $1,000 in most of the examples we saw.
Right. And the reason I'm suggesting that is because if the concern is, if there's a monetary concern about enacting an ordinance, we do have this concern about, what is going to happen with the Supreme Court, what's going to happen with the state, all that stuff. But then, I feel like some of us on council are to the point that we're looking at a resolution as a way of stating that these are the things that we care about in our community. And what you're telling me is that most of the things are resolved, most of the issues are resolved through mediation, that the teeth of the ordinance, is that really the most important thing, or is the mediation the most important thing? And I'm not trying to make a case one way or another at this point. I'm just saying, maybe looking at some sort of compromise, something that maybe could get more of us on board.
I think the difference here, thank you, I think the difference here is the ordinance is a law.
Right.
The resolution is not.
Right.
Right now, it is legal to discriminate against LGBTQ.
Right.
By making an ordinance, you're saying no. That's illegal. Don't do it. By making a resolution, you're just saying that you support the idea of that. There's a big difference. There's a big difference in equal rights and not equal rights. There's a big difference.
And I hear that. I'm just saying, I'm trying to, there's going to be some of us that are for a resolution and some of us that are for an ordinance or for not doing anything. So I'm trying to come up with something that we can move forward on, and I don't really know which of those options are
Would a Human Relations Commission, would those commissioners be agents of the borough?
They certainly would be, yeah. I mean, they would be, when you say agents. I
So
mean,
like in
they
the
would
sense-
be, they would be appointed by the borough. They would be required to operate within the context of the ordinance that is crafted.
So any actions taken, the borough would be liable for. For instance, in Masterpiece v. Cake, they ruled that the Colorado Civil Rights Commission made errors of law.
They,
I mean, I think
it
like
would
the
be
civil
appointed
service
by the
review acts,
borough.
you know,
I mean,
you're-
it's,
You're acting as an agent of the borough at that point. That's your role. So, I mean, any decision you make is an action of the borough. Like, we as a council only exist as agents of the borough. I am not the borough. We are not the borough. We act as agents as the manager and any other appointee. So to kind of try to minimize that component is very, it sounds nice at the inception of this discussion, but it's not really accurate.
You have a Shade Tree Commission, you have zoning commissions, you do have commissions that you do provide cover for. So it's your decision as to if you want to have a commission to enforce this ordinance, which is the only way to protect your citizens.
I mean, we're a small town, but we tend to attract litigation most small towns.
Yeah.
More than most. And I think that's something we have to be aware of. Not that it should negate entirely, but it's something we need to be aware of.
We've actually attracted a lot of litigation from within our own borough department with the police department in years past. So that came from within the department, you know, of the borough, not from outside, actually. You know, one involved a sexual harassment case and one involved a, you know, extensive use of force with the tasing. It involved a person of color. So I think this is an issue that may take more time for us than just tonight. But I think that beyond cost and beyond, you know, whether we go the legal route of an ordinance or the resolution, I think it's a bigger question as a body of what kind of community do we want to be, and do we want to be a community of inclusion or not? And that's a big question. It's a moral question. It's a values question. I would hope that that people could set aside religion for this and separate, you know, religion and state in terms of just what type of community do we want to be. You know, we have members of our community who are, you know, migrant community, and there have been issues in the past with them. And, you know, I want to live in a community where there's inclusion. And I think that's really important. I think, and having been, you know, a gender that was excluded from, you know, in terms of civil rights and in terms of equal rights, I'm sensitive to that. And in terms of my own family, in terms of members of my own family who are members of LGBTQ, I think that's something that we need to address. And it's not an easy one. And we come to this discussion with our own viewpoints. But again, I think it's the bigger question of what type of community do we want to be. I mean, I am not a member of the LGBTQ, but I'm an ally. And I was so proud of the Pride events that went on the last 2 years. And I thought, this is a community that I want to live in. You know, I want to be in a community where we accept and embrace difference, and that we strive to integrate our police force, where we see people of color, we see women, even among them make up the composition of our own council. And I think this is, you know, it may not be resolved tonight, you know, but I would hope that we would bring some of those discussions to the table.
Drake, we have a comment.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw on a different hat here.
Yeah.
Patty knows what hat I'm probably going to throw on. By training, I'm an anthropologist. And I study cultures everywhere, trying to understand how they're changing, why they're changing, and how that affects the communities in which they live. I chose to move to Gettysburg simply because of what I saw as the potential of the community. And I'm going to tell you, there are problems in the community. I'm working with the high school on problems with racism right now. Helping to partner with them to try to change issues that have occurred in our high school over the past year and in the middle school. And as I told them, the key part is, if we want to be a community where people want to come here, people want to be involved, we have to take a step back, stop worrying about what's happening up at the federal level. Think about who we are as a group. Because our culture is changing. It is getting younger, and the younger demographic is actually more open-minded than our older generations. If we want to see this become a hub where people want to come to live here and work, we have to be more inclusive. Everywhere where people are actually invited in, where they become more inclusive, where they have enacted ordinances just like this, actually they see an uptick in prosperity. They actually see an uptick in the cost of living. Actually, people can afford to live in better places. They actually see an influx of money into communities. So if we're not thinking about that, we're hurting ourselves. And that's where we should be focused on. How do we want to get people to want to come here, to invest in this community, to make it as good as it can be? And if we're not doing that, the culture will actually shrink, it will die, and we'll go the way that Charles was talking about, where we'll be in bankruptcy, because the only way we're going to get that money is to make it a place where people want to come to live and work. And that's something that the council needs to be considering.
And sir, normally I would applaud your attempt to kind of compromise between, you know, what's a good solution, an ordinance or a resolution. But I think this is an issue that we cannot compromise on. I think we need an ordinance, and I would just ask, you know, anyone, I would ask myself as an ally, which ones of your freedoms or rights would you like to have protected, and which ones would you just like to have recommended or supported? There is a difference if you're thinking of that. And to the point of freedom of religion, keep in mind that also means freedom from religion. So one religion shouldn't be given a priority preference over others. So I would love the idea of a compromise, but I think this is an issue that, you know, we do not need to compromise on.
That's the term religious neutrality. That's why they term it that way.
Right.
Because you're neutral. It's just, it is the way it is. I don't know. I'm not personally at that belief system, but we have people in the community that are. And of many various belief systems that do not. Islam just believes the same.
Do we feel like we can move forward with anything right now? Or do we want to take more time to discuss this?
I think we definitely need to take more time.
Okay, all right, okay. Then, I mean, I think that's.
We're not at a conclusion.
Right. I don't see that.
I don't think
either.
so.
You can't take formal action tonight.
Yeah,
I was
but
going to say
I
the
don't.
alternative would be to take the vote next meeting,
Yeah.
and without more discussion, that
Yeah.
maybe isn't the best route.
I would also wonder whether or not we want to look into a little bit, as a council, look into researching a little bit of communities. I know Huntington, which is a small community, you know, upstate, you know, passed an ordinance like this recently, a smaller community than ours. And I know that there are others within the Commonwealth, and I'm just wondering if that would help guide some of the discussions.
Yeah, I feel like that would help our discussion a lot.
Jason, do you have any numbers on communities that have gone the resolution route as opposed?
I am only aware of a few, and they were about 10 years ago. They've since now adopted ordinances. The citizens didn't give up.
You know that over time, people have seen the ordinance as a better route, what you're saying.
Should this go back on the next workshop agenda?
I mean, we need to talk about it more, so I guess keep it on old business.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess where I'm going from a staff's perspective is we don't want to see you just continue to
Right,
talk about this
right.
with no resolution in
Yeah.
either direction, ad nauseum, and before you know it.
Maybe at the next
By
workshop.
that point, you know, the Supreme Court will have weighed in, and
Right, yeah.
we spent a lot of time getting nowhere.
Maybe by the next meeting, we can have more information about
That's where
other
if we had
communities.
committees, this is a
Yeah.
good thing to come up from a committee,
Right.
where there'd be some
study.
We've
Right.
been sitting on like 10 or 12 ordinances for months.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, we've had this discussion many times. This is not in any way new. That's what I kind of find kind of frustrating, is that, you know, like, we need to reach some sort of an outcome here fairly soon.
Yeah, I don't know that you're going to learn a lot more information at this point. It probably would be instructive for you to talk to your colleagues maybe in Huntington, give them a phone call and see what their thinking was, just one-on-one, you know, colleague to colleague in a different community, and then maybe bring that conversation back next month.
Is there any conversation at PSAB or PML that you know of?
I do not, I'm not familiar with a specific position PSAB or PML would have on this issue. I would suspect they do have a position, I just don't know what it is.
Right.
At this
We
point.
should get a sample ordinance from PSAP though.
We did. Yeah.
We did.
So we have.
We have
We've
a
got
few.
wonderful sample ordinances. I mean, that's
Yeah, we
not
have a
the
few
issue.
here.
That's not the issue.
All right, Jenny. Yeah.
I just want to say, I mean, yes, I'm an ally. I go into a restaurant, I go into a store, I go into a bar, I go anywhere, and I don't feel that I'm looked at any differently than anybody else. I feel that if there is an issue, that I can call the police, I won't be treated any differently than anybody else. I don't see that with the LGBTQ community. People still think it's a mental disease, and it is not. I don't want to see my friends going somewhere that they are uncomfortable to be in, and they don't feel that anybody there or the police has their back and would take them seriously. They're not feeling secure in their own neighborhood. But I feel secure in the neighborhood. Why shouldn't they have the rights to also feel secure in their own neighborhood and know that if something is done, justice can happen?
And we get back into the nuts and bolts of some of the ordinances we received included words like perceived, which I noted before made me very nervous. It's a perceived slight or perceived injustice, and it's different when if you have a statement, an action, something you can point at. I think it's a little bit more concrete. Mechanicsburg's in particular dealt about perception, and that's troubling, because one person's perception may vary from the perception of another very easily, and it's very difficult to enact any type of law in that way.
Okay, so let's.
I just want to add one more thing too,
Okay.
just because the folks that were here from HAC, and thank you for coming tonight. Gettysburg College has a non-discriminatory ordinance, a non-discrimination action that they have. So there's another example of another institutional higher education in the community that does have that. And I know that there would be people in both the communities, HAC and Gettysburg College, that would be interested in serving on, a commission, if we put together a Human Relations Commission. And I think, we look at the future and we look at youth, and youth are probably, LGBTQ youth are probably targeted more than any other group. I mean, we've all read about the bullying that goes on. We have teachers among us who see it in schools. The suicide rate for young people in the LGBTQ community is really so high. And so again, keeping that in mind, I mean, that is a vulnerable population. They're under 18. And so I just think, I just want to put that out there. But I don't think it will be an issue getting volunteers to serve on this commission. And I think we should probably have somebody from, if we were to do this, I think to have somebody from council to serve on it as well, that would be the liaison back and forth. So just want to mention that. Thank you.
All right.
I just want to say something real quick. Sorry, but I'm passionate about this.
All right.
Have any of you ever been called any names?
But we're not gonna. No, let's.
No, I'm just saying, that is why we need.
We're not gonna get into this. It's 20 of 10, and I'm dying up here. So.
For hours.
But I mean, it's a valid point. It's a valid point.
Because it's a point
But
of privilege.
right.
And so those of us that are not in, those groups, it is a point of privilege.
Right,
And
right.
we're coming at it from a different.
And I think this is part of the larger conversation, but I don't think we're
I
gonna
mean,
solve it in the next 20 minutes, how we're moving forward.
There are
Yeah,
lots of things
thanks.
we could talk about. It's interesting being accused of discrimination when you didn't even know someone held a belief or identity that that is supposedly you were discriminating for. And I've experienced that, and it's horrifying. You know, that there are many sides to that coin. To have no knowledge of anyone's beliefs or preferences or anything, and to be accused of that is, in my experience teaching, it makes me nervous every day. Because I honestly, I just don't care. And I don't mean I don't care about the cause. I mean, I don't care what you believe in. Okay, if you want to have certain preferences, that's why it's America. Okay, and that's why we have those freedoms. But to be called out on that, I can tell you from experience, that is very interesting.
All right, let's put this off to the next workshop, so that we can discuss it more.
Can we go back to special events real quick?
Why not?
Only because the folks that are here to speak on this issue, non-discrimination, are interested in planning the Pride event. I do have an email from Chad Allen Carr, and I just did a quick sidebar because I didn't expect to talk about this tonight, but this is probably a good time to at least broach the topic for council's consideration. Chad Allen, would you like to talk about what you're requesting, and then I can fill in after that?
Sure. So our Gettysburg Pride will be in its 4th annual. As you are aware, HBO was here in July. We are the pilot. HBO did buy it. We are the pilot. Gettysburg is the pilot episode. That should be aired in March, April, or May. It has premiered. You can search HBO previewing the new shows of their season, and you can see it's called We're Here. A lot of eyes are going to be on us. I'm excited about that. I do think that's going to be help make an even bigger Gettysburg Pride this year. We stopped counting at 400 on the march. That was the first time we've ever done the march. I anticipate those numbers to double. And in that light, I would like for the borough to possibly consider being a sponsor of the Gettysburg Pride event, which is essentially saying, yes, all are welcome here to our tourist town, and let's see some beautiful rainbow flags around the square. So that is something I'll be working with the Pride organization and presenting to you some thoughts on, can we work together? Christmas Festival was wonderful. Pride Fests around the country are also wonderful and bring a lot of economic development. There's a lot of money that I would say that a lot of people of LGBTQ community can bring to our town. Many of us are blessed with children of our own. Many of us are blessed with adopted children, and many of us have a lot of disposable income, as they say, that would be coming to our town for a big Pride Fest. I think that the rainbow flag means a lot more than many people realize. And I think the most important thing that it means is love, acceptance, and equality. And so I would say that that flag should be out on the square to say, yes, all are welcome here. Did I miss anything, Charles?
No, you did a great job, thank you.
Which parade route, though, would you?
We're not talking parade yet.
Well, we want to know which route you're talking.
That's an expense that we're not quite ready for, but I who knows? For our 5th year, maybe. It's just really going to depend upon,
Fee structure.
the numbers and the fee structure, of course, but the numbers of the attendees. I mean, but right now we're excited to have May 29th through 31st, which is also Gettysburg College Alumni Weekend. It's always been that same weekend. It's worked well, and we're having educational components with it, free HIV testing and counseling. We are having churches that are there that are all welcoming and affirming for the LGBTQ community. They are there. St. James marched with us every step of the way during that march. We also are going to be having, Waldo's is planning a youth party, or I should say a non-alcoholic event, because it's not just for youth, but it's for those that might be in recovery, or for those that don't want to go to a bar. and that's going to be their pride event at Waldo's. So we're excited that the town is coming forward and planning their own events. I would like to also say that just last year we had 25 local business sponsors. So when someone mentions something about, well, we can't really, business is this and business is that, they're supportive. Our businesses are supportive of LGBTQ community. We had 25 sponsors of local borough businesses for Gettysburg Pride.
The reason I wanted to put that on your radar is we staff run into this issue a lot. The square is typically considered fairly sacred ground for obvious reasons. And 2 councils ago, I believe, passed a resolution outlining the uses of the square. And so currently, the square is not open for the public to just walk out there and display whatever it is they wish to display. So should this be granted, we would need an action of council to allow staff to move forward with that. Now, there is precedent for this. What was it, Survivors?
It was domestic abuse,
with
the
domestic
clothesline.
abuse,
Yeah.
where council did permit their display on the square. Obviously, the flag still stands. That's sacrament. That's not coming down and being replaced with something else. But generally speaking, as a rule based on that resolution, staff's interpretation is nothing except the American flag and some flowers are on the square. And if you see fit to change that, staff would need your direction to authorize that.
And that was due to the safety of access.
That was one of the
Why
primary,
was
that was
done,
one of the
because
primary reasons.
There's no
correct.
pedestrian access.
Right. Not for a decision tonight, just put it on your radar, and no, council has the formal request.
Sure, and also when I say the square, I mean, I get the island, that's definitely a safety issue. Even though everybody who gets married in Gettysburg goes out there on the island with their friends and takes pictures of them. But I get that, but what about the little gardens on the quadrants? I understand that's borough property, but there's no safety concern with some beautiful flags of rainbow colors on the quadrant gardens.
No, what he was talking about, that
Right.
resolution was about the service.
Was about
Specifically,
correct.
That was all about the
I totally get that. I agree.
You can't get the island without some sort of.
But from even a broader perspective, Chad Allen's correct, the trees, those planters are borough managed property. Does council want anyone being able just to put anything in there? So again, staff will need some direction on that, because you can see where it could go if anyone can
Right.
come down and put any kind of signage in there. What a mess we would.
We've had people here before.
We have had undesirable messages there before, correct?
Yeah, that's something else to talk about. All right, let's move on.
That's the end of our
That's
agenda.
it.
Yeah, I know, except for the public comment.
We had that on.
There was any public that didn't have comments? Mike?
Mike Shestock, 264 Baldwin Street. I'm still there even though I was here tonight. My comments weren't on the agenda specifically, but my anger has subsided. So I'm going home miffed. And I'm miffed because it took you so long in teamwork and communication to get to some resolution on the Memorial Day parade. You're really at the 11th hour and beyond that, so I hope the next business meeting, both parties do what's right. I'm a veteran. I had 25 years. Haven't told too many people why I got my Purple Heart, and I survived 9/11. So that National Cemetery is very important to me. And I also want to applaud Jake for your running of this meeting. There was a lot of give and take during agenda items, and I think that's healthy for the community. And Charles, I don't always applaud you, but I want to say thanks for your information paper and all the hard work you did there. That wasn't a 5-minute project. I'm sure you had a couple drafts on that, so.
Couple drinks.
That's an education. That's an education. Couple more. For the public. And I hope Jim Hale, Harry Hartman gives you some extra space in the paper, because a lot of good work was done today, and I applaud that. And as you know, I attend a lot of the meetings, and I try and hear and listen what you're doing, so thanks for what you did tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Hewitt?
Bill Hewitt, Franklin Township. One, I wanted to thank a lot of people, the committee and the council, for at least walking away from the precipice, because we were very close. But to also thank President Schindel for stopping by on Thursday, because I think that helped a lot. And I wanted to thank Mike Shestock, who was a conduit to get us to both walk backward from this cliff. He doesn't look like much, for that matter. I don't look like much, but my last job in the Pentagon, he handled $600 million a year for me. And so he was quite the man for me. The parade itself used to be Mayberry RFD. The police had 2 or 3 cruisers in front, the lights were flashing. We used to throw out sawhorses, and it took 2 hours. 2 people, 2 hours, pick them up, good, no problem. And then somebody said, we can make some money at this. Now think about this, because you brought it up, Mr. Heiser. You're already paying and budgeting for your police force in your budget. Now we're reimbursing you for us to put your parade on for you. Now I'm not talking about the auxiliaries and the temporaries, but you understand what I'm saying. As you point out on the bill, we're paying for your entire police force for 3 hours. That's what we did. That's fine. We complained to Major Troxel for 2 years, Mayor Troxel, for the last 2 years that he was the mayor on this issue. We're paying you to put on a parade for your community. That doesn't sound like a partnership to me. It just doesn't sound like one. Now, we've created maybe a feeling of possible way to go forward, but we've also seen a lot of problems with this ordinance as it's currently written. We got different programs for this guy and that guy, the student walk, we got this, that's not really a parade, we got that, it's not really a parade. It doesn't distinguish your ordinance between somebody that brings in thousands of people, they stay in your hotels, they buy your food, they buy your trinkets in your shops. If a taxpayer came to me and said, what do I get out of it? You get lower taxes. Because that person that sold that food increased their income, and that income went to you. The pillow tax goes to you, doesn't it? So you're making money on this drill. Much more so, as Mr. Gable pointed out, than the Halloween parade, which is a little bit local. So as you review your ordinance, you might want to look at the difference between somebody that brings in money and somebody that doesn't. I'm just throwing that out. I think that covers everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hewitt. All right, anyone else?
Sean Lazarus, licensed social worker. It was a pretty good discussion we had about the ordinance. I of course support it. As a social worker, it is hard for me to talk to the youth who are bullied, who are targeted, and tell them it gets better when I don't know if it will get better for them. So I think there is a financial perspective, there's a legal perspective, but I mean, these are humans, and the stories I have every day, both adults who have children as well as the children who live in our community, who live in this area, and tell them that you'll be okay, it gets better. It doesn't. It's not getting better. So we have to care. We are past the point of, I don't care if you're LGBTQ, we have to care, because people are getting harder to live with, and we need to really start caring and advocating. And I think we need to get over that hump of I don't care to I'm going to care for you. I might not totally agree, but I care and I'm going to advocate for you. Thank you.
All right. Anything else from anybody? All right, let's adjourn this meeting.